Chapter 242. Shi Fengju had only closed his eyes for a short while, but he had already woken up. He was looking at her with a smile on his face and was startled by her sudden movement. He quickly sat up and patted her shoulder with a smile. "What are you yelling about? It's fine if it's late. There's nothing else to do today. Why didn't you wake me up? It's already time to light the lanterns. We've been in this room for half a day. What will the maidservants think?" Sangwon couldn't help but grumble as she glared at him. Shi Fengju was already used to her being like this. He smiled and said, "This courtyard is filled with our servants. Who would dare to gossip? You're always too careful." As they spoke, the two of them got off the Kong bed and put on their shoes. Before they could put on their shoes properly, they heard Lu Ya's penetrating voice, "Eldest Missy, you're here." Sangwon was so frightened that she almost sprained her ankle. She hurriedly put on her shoes. Shi Fengju's low laughter came from above her head. She couldn't help but glare at him. "You can still laugh. If your eldest sister comes in and sees this, I don't know what she'll say in front of mother." "Then just don't get up." Shi Fengju found it funny. "Don't get up?" Sangwon looked down at her slightly wrinkled and messy clothes and her slightly loose hair bun. She was in a daze when Shi Fengju picked her up and laid her down on the Kong bed. He took off her shoes and said with a low laugh, "Just lie down. I'll go out and take a look." Shi Yumei glanced at Luya and snorted, "What? I can't come at this time." "Eldest Missy, this servant doesn't dare to accept such words. This servant doesn't deserve this. Eldest Missy, please come in." Luya shouted again. Shi Yumei suddenly stopped and looked at her. "Go ahead. Why are you shouting so loudly? I'm not deaf. The manor has been bustling with noise these past few days. This servant has been running around to pass on messages. If I don't shout, how can others hear me clearly? Who knew that he still couldn't change? It's all this servant's fault," Luya hurriedly said with a smile. Hearing her mention Shi Lian's lively wedding, although Shi Yumei didn't attend, she could imagine how lively it must have been. Her heart ached even more, and her face darkened. She said coldly, "How can you be so happy with such a small event? Ignorant." Luya didn't notice the disdain in Shi Yumei's words at all. She nodded honestly and said with a smile, "How could this servant dare to compare herself with eldest Missy? This servant is naturally ignorant." Shi Yumei was neither soft nor hard. She felt that it would be beneath her dignity to do something about it, so she suppressed her anger and asked as she walked inside, "Where's your master? Do they not welcome me or something? Why can't I see anyone?" Luya forced a smile and didn't know what to say. She saw Shi Fengju lift the curtain and walk out of the warm room. He smiled and called out, "Big sister. You're here too." Shi Yumei was startled. She couldn't help but look in the direction of the warm room. Why aren't the lights lit at this time? "Oh," Shi Fengju casually said with a smile. "I just came from the study room and found out that Wan Yang is resting inside because she's not feeling well." "Big sister, are you here for something?" Shi Yumei didn't say anything after hearing this. She sighed and didn't say anything else. Shi Fengju understood that she had something to say. He ordered the servants to serve tea and gave them a look to stop. He then smiled and said, "Big sister, if you have something to say, feel free to say it." Shi Yumei wanted to say something but hesitated a few times. In the end, she sighed and said, "I plan to go home tomorrow. What can happen to me? It's all about the troubles at home. Second brother, you're so smart, there's nothing you don't know." Shi Fengju indeed knew. In fact, everyone in the Shi family knew that the only thing that could make Shi Yumei so embarrassed was her husband complaining again. "I've already instructed the Jean housekeeper to send money to Big Sister's family at the beginning of every month. Did the Jean housekeeper not follow my instructions?" Shi Fengju's eyes narrowed slightly. No. Shi Yumei hurriedly said, "The Jean housekeeper will send money over on the first day of every month. It's just that. You also know that your big brother-in-law has a lot of friends. He often goes to poetry gatherings and literary gatherings, so his expenses are a little high. Shi Fengju sighed in his heart, but he didn't intend to indulge this arrogant big brother-in-law of his. If he helped him with the money, it would be a waste. Not only would he not be grateful, his appetite would only grow bigger and bigger. Just by looking at how he didn't even show his face during the Shi family's wedding and then sent his wife to ask for money while he hid behind her without saying a word, it was obvious that he didn't care about the Shi family at all. Why should he help this kind of person? Shi Fengju subconsciously recalled Sang Wan's suggestion that he should persuade his big sister to divorce, and his heart actually wavered a little. If things were to continue like this, it would be better to have a clean divorce. Without money to attend poetry gatherings, your brother-in-law's friends don't really like him anymore. They don't even invite him to gatherings on normal days. Your brother-in-law is annoyed, so he vents his anger at home. What do you mean by behind closed doors? His brain is already numb, and he doesn't know what's going on at all, so how can he improve? Not to mention the next subject, I'm afraid he won't even pass the next subject. I'm really worried to death. With him like this, there's no way he can calm down and revise his studies. If he keeps failing, what hope does big sister have in the future? Second brother, why don't I write you an IOU, so you can help us again? Shi Fengju paused for a while before saying, Big sister, don't indulge brother-in-law too much. Look at second Uncle Sang and our third brother, aren't they all studying hard and burying their heads in their studies? When did they ever attend so many poetry gatherings? How can people who truly study have the time to do those leisurely things? You'd better advise brother-in-law to restrain himself and focus on studying behind closed doors. Besides, it's not like you don't know those friends of his. How many of them are decent? It's actually a good thing for those people to leave him. Now that you're doing this for him, I'm afraid that if he passes in the future, he won't even have you in his eyes. Big sister, I think you should make a good plan as soon as possible. Shi Fengju's last sentence was just to test his sister's feelings. Seeing that his sister's expression changed slightly after he spoke, he regretted asking. Sure enough, Shi Yumei said with some displeasure, I'm just asking for your help. If you're not willing, and feel that I'm taking advantage of you, then just say it. I won't blame you for this. After all, this isn't something you should care about, and I'm not that unreasonable. Yes, your brother-in-law's temper is a bit strange, but he's also a decent person. Although his words are a bit unpleasant at times, he's never done anything to let me down. I have nothing to say if you compare him to your second brother-in-law. Your second brother-in-law is just lucky. But you shouldn't belittle your brother-in-law like this, right? I'm just a woman, and my husband is my life support. His future is where all my hopes lie. You're asking me to make a plan as soon as possible, but what can I do? Aren't you clearly harboring ill intentions? As she spoke, she became angry again and said angrily, In the past, you would never say such things to me. Did someone instigate you? Who's so evil and wicked that they can't bear to see me living well? They'll only be satisfied if my family is ruined. Shi Yumei suddenly raised her voice when she said the last two sentences. Intentionally or unintentionally, she glanced in the direction of the warm room. Sang Wan suddenly sat up, somewhat baffled. She didn't hear clearly what Shi Fengju and his sister were talking about, but Shi Yumei's angry words were clearly directed at her. She couldn't help but feel annoyed. She didn't know how she had offended this bodhisattva for no reason. Big sister. Shi Fengju inwardly mocked himself. He thought that he had hit the nail on the head this time. Although it wasn't Wan Nyang who instigated him, Wan Nyang was also doing it out of kindness. Big sister's reaction was secretly making Wan Nyang feel wronged. Big sister, can you just take it that I'm spouting nonsense? I'll apologize to you. Don't think too much. There's no one who instigated you behind your back. Shi Fengju hurriedly apologized with a smile. Seeing him like this, Shi Yumei didn't know what to say anymore. She said, I was just saying. Second brother, don't take it to heart. Big sister, you're treating me like an outsider. We're related by blood and flesh. Why would I take it to heart? Shi Fengju hurriedly said with a smile. That's good. That's good. Shi Yumei said again. By the way, I wonder if big sister has eaten dinner yet? Shi Fengju asked with a smile. Shi Yumei then remembered that her younger brother probably hadn't eaten yet. She could only stand up and smile. I've already eaten at mother's place. Then, I won't disturb you any longer. I'll go back first. Shi Fengju nodded and stood up to send her off. Big sister, take care. Seeing that he did not mention anything about the money, Shi Yumei was slightly disappointed. However, since she had already stood up to leave, she would feel embarrassed if she were to ask again. Thus, she could only swallow her words and leave with a forced smile. Shi Fengju sent her out and returned to the warm room. At this time, Lu Ye and Xing Ji had already come in and lit the lamp. They were helping Sang Wan to get up. When Sang Wan saw Shi Fengju come in, she ordered the two of them to fetch water to wash his face. Then, she asked Shi Fengju, Big sister said those words just now. Did I offend her in any way? Shi Fengju knew that she would definitely ask him this question. He hurriedly smiled and said, No. I was careless and said something that made her think wrongly. It really has nothing to do with you. Sang Wan looked up and glanced at him deeply. After a moment she said, Oh. It would be strange if she believed him. Shi Fengju smiled bitterly and shook his head. He hurriedly pulled her over and put his arm around her shoulder. Wan Yang, don't think too much. Big sister just came back. You two haven't even spoken much. How could you offend her? Sang Wan said lightly, The one who's thinking too much isn't me. It's her. You don't have to say this to me. I'm fine. Lu Ye and the others came in with water. They washed their faces and rinsed their mouths. Not long after, they asked the servants to set up the table and eat together with Shi Fengju. Shi Yumei thought about the boastful words she said to her husband when she returned to her maternal home. She suddenly felt irritated. She blamed her husband for not living up to her expectations and blamed her brother for not giving her any face. She couldn't think of anything. In the end, she could only brace herself and tell Wang a lie. She took 400 taels of silver from Wang and gave up. Sang Yufei's schedule in Shangjing was very tight. After 7 or 8 days, she set foot on the journey to Shangjing. Chapter 243. Wang gave Shi Lian 2 concubines and 4 maidservants as dowry. After Shi Lian's husband and sister-in-law discussed it, they decided to leave one of the concubines at home to help take care of the dowry land, while they took the 4 maidservants and the other concubine to go to the capital. Except for Cai Yun, the other 3 maidservants were all eager to try. They had long regarded themselves as the son-in-law's people. Seeing Sang Yufei's handsome appearance and the fact that he came in third, they were even more in awe of him. They felt that they were of high birth and could be considered to be knowledgeable. As for the young master, although he had limitless prospects, he was born in the countryside and had never seen any beauties before. Therefore, they were full of confidence. Intentionally or unintentionally, they liked to play coquettishly in front of Sang Yufei. Shi Lian looked on coldly and pretended not to see. Cai Yun was so angry that she gritted her teeth and cursed behind her back. Sang Yufei secretly sneered. He was not Ran Jixien. Would he be infatuated with the dowry maidservants? In his heart, he disliked them even more than Shi Lian. The two had already secretly discussed that they would sell these 3 people on the way to the capital, so as to avoid any trouble in the capital. On the day of departure, Sang Yufei and Shi Lian both bid farewell to Sang Hong and his wife. Thinking that they would be separated for at least 2 or 3 years, Sang Hong's eyes couldn't help but become moist. His mood was also very complicated. He was happy and proud, but also sad and reluctant. After you settle down there, don't forget to write a letter, so that we won't miss you at home. The capital's expenses are high. If you lack money, write a letter and tell us. Although our family is not very rich, thanks to you, we can be considered good. We can always help you. Sang Hong patted his second brother's shoulder and said. Sang Yufei hurriedly agreed. Fong liked that Shi Lian was gentle, polite, and sensible. Although they had only known each other for a few days, she was still reluctant to part with her. She held her hand and said with a smile, we will take care of the family's fields and properties. As for the dowry that you didn't take away, I will pack it up and lock it up. I heard that the prices in the capital are high, and the people there are powerful. Don't be too tight on money. I calculated yesterday that the family's fields and shops produce about 700 to 800 taels a year. I think it's enough for you to live well in the capital. Shi Lian's heart warmed when she heard this. Although she wasn't the favored daughter of the family, she didn't really care about 700 to 800 taels of silver. However, Feng was willing to give them all of her earnings this year. This kind of kindness was something that couldn't be exchanged with money. Sister-in-law, you and big brother, as well as little Quan and little Nguyen, have to lead a better life at home. That way, we can rest assured. We brought a lot of money to the capital. Moreover, our husband has a salary, so we won't be too tight on money. Sister-in-law, don't worry. Shi Lian said with a smile. However, Sang Hong sighed and said, but most of the money you brought is your dowry. It's best if you don't use it. You should keep it well. Shi Lian hurriedly said with a smile, Big brother, you're treating me like an outsider. There's no distinction between me and my husband. In the future, when my husband gets promoted and increases his salary, he can return it to me. Everyone laughed when they heard this. Big brother, don't worry. I know what to do. Sang Yufei also said with a smile. He wasn't a pedantic person. If he really needed to use money and didn't have any other sources of money, there was nothing wrong with using his wife's money. Just as she said, he would return it to her in the future. Since they were husband and wife, they should share weal and woe together. Seeing that it was getting late, Sang Hong was afraid that they would delay their journey, so he urged them to set off. Sang Yufei and Shi Lian said their goodbyes again and again, then got into the car and left. When they arrived at Qingzhou City, they arrived at the Shi family again. After staying at the Shi family for 3 days, Sang Yufei and Shi Fenghua had a discussion. After that, they went to Magistrate Hong's residence as a guest. Under Shi Fengju's arrangement, they took a boat to the capital. After Magistrate Hong met Sang Yufei, he deeply praised his talent and character. He also knew that with the Shi family's huge financial backing, Sang Yufei would be like a fish in water in the capital. After 1 or 2 years in the Hanlin Academy, it wouldn't be a problem for him to enter either the Ministry of Appointments or the Ministry of Revenue. He couldn't help but secretly make up his mind to take good care of the Shi family so that Shi Fengju would owe him a favor in the future. Therefore, when he accidentally overheard his good-for-nothing son muttering that Sang Yufei's wife was his grand-aunt, he immediately flew into a rage. Ignoring his wife's dissuasion, he ruthlessly gave his son a beating. A few days after Sang Yufei and his wife left the Shi family, an uninvited guest came to the Shi family in the morning. This person was wearing a brand new royal blue round-collared robe made of Hangzhou silk and a pair of black boots. He even used a jade hairpin to tie up his hair. From the back, he looked like an elegant and wealthy man. However, from the front, he was very disappointing. This person was close to 50 years old. He had a pair of puffy eyes, high cheekbones, yellow wrinkled skin, thin lips, and 2 wisps of a mustache. He had a careful and ingratiating smile on his face. At first glance, one could tell that he wasn't someone of status. This person was Ryo Kuwabara. I wonder if Miss Gu is here? Ryo Kuwabara asked the gatekeeper with a smile. Miss Gu? The gatekeeper saw that this old man was asking if Miss Gu was here. He couldn't help but look at him from the corner of his eyes and vigilantly asked, Who are you? Why are you looking for Miss Gu? Why? Of course, it was to ask for help. Ryo Kuwabara hurriedly said, My name is Ryo Kuwabara. I'll have to trouble you to inform Miss Gu that Ryo Kuwabara is looking for her for an urgent matter. As he spoke, he took out a piece of silver from his lapel and stuffed it into the gatekeeper's hand with a flattering smile. The gatekeeper saw that the silver was about 2 or 3 coins. He weighed it in his heart and thought that it was better than nothing. He pointed to the side and said, Stand there and don't block the way. I'll go ask for you. Before Ryo Kuwabara could say, Thank you, the gatekeeper stopped and looked at him from head to toe. Your surname is Sang? Could it be that you are a relative of our family's young mistress? Other than young mistress's relatives, the Shi family didn't seem to have any other relatives or friends with the surname Sang. This was one of the benefits of being a gatekeeper. He had a good understanding of the social relationships in the Shi family. Ah! No, no, no. Ryo Kuwabara was shocked and hurriedly shook his hands to deny it. What a joke. How would he dare to admit it? If Wan Nyong knew what he had done, she would definitely tear him apart. That Miss Gu who was full of smiles and treated people kindly was much easier to talk to. He could only throw away his pride and beg the kind Miss Gu. As for Wan Nyong, it was best that she didn't know. If you're not, then you're not. Why are you so agitated? The gatekeeper glared at him and turned to find someone to pass on the message. As for why Ryo Kuwabara appeared here, it all started from 2 months ago. At that time, Shi Fengju was recuperating in Handong, and Sang Wan also rushed to Handong to take care of him. Gu Fengzi had interfered with the Shi family shipping business through Wang, so she set her sights on Ryo Kuwabara and Li. Ever since she accidentally bumped into Li in the garden that day, Gu Fengzi saw clearly what kind of person Li was and had a vague idea in her heart. After that, she secretly sent someone to Sai village in Yonglu town to investigate. When they found out about the dispute between Ryo Kuwabara and Sang Hong, Gu Fengzi was so happy that she almost laughed out loud. With such a ready-made person in front of her, if she didn't make good use of him, even she would look down on herself. Thus, one afternoon, a horse carriage drove into Sai village. A person came down from the carriage and knocked on the door of Ryo Kuwabara's house. The person called himself Husan and said with a smile, "Are you Ryo Kuwabara's second master Sang? I was sent by Miss Gu of the Qingzhou Shi family. May I know if second mistress is in?" "You're looking for my mistress." Ryo Kuwabara saw that Husan wasn't even 30 years old and his wife was an old vegetable. He didn't suspect anything, but felt that it was strange. "It was Miss Gu who sent me to see second mistress." Miss Gu and second mistress felt like old friends at first sight. Second mistress naturally understood when she heard that it was Miss Gu. Husan said with a smile. Although Ryo Kuwabara was a little suspicious, he still invited Husan into the house. He told Sang Ro to bring Li back. When Li heard Husan mention Miss Gu, she saw that he had met Gu Fengzi in the garden and saw that he had taken out a pair of golden hairpins as a gift. She didn't have any doubts anymore and was happy and proud. She praised Gu Fengzi and her words of praise were like a torrential river. Husan didn't expect this woman to be so nonsensical when she started talking, so he didn't interrupt her. He could only smile and praise his master a few words. Ryo Kuwabara's brain wasn't muddled. He knew that Husan didn't come all the way here just to take a look, give a small gift or say a few words of praise. He coughed and interrupted Li and asked with a smile, "Little brother Husan, is there anything else?" When Husan heard this, he was like a pillow sent to him. He quickly nodded and said, "That's right. It's like this. Our Shi family shipping company is currently lacking someone to guard the warehouse. Guarding the warehouse is a simple job. Remember to close the door when you enter and leave, and patrol the area at night. Don't let anyone enter and leave to steal anything from the warehouse. However, the person in charge of this job must be someone trustworthy. Only then can one feel at ease, right? Miss Gu is now in charge of this matter, so she sent this lowly one to ask if second old master has the intention to do so." Firstly, Miss Gu and second old mistress Gu hit it off at first sight. She also knows that your situation isn't too good. This job is easy, and it's good to earn some money to support the family. Secondly, you are young mistress's family, so naturally, you are trustworthy. Miss Gu can rest assured if she leaves this matter to you. No problem, no problem. When Ryo Kuwabara heard that he was going to work for the Shi family, he was elated. How could he refuse? Not to mention that this job was simple, even if it wasn't. Once he entered the Shi family's business, he was also Sang Wan's uncle. Who would dare to disrespect him? In the future, if he did well, he could make friends and expand his network. His future could be said to be bright. Wouldn't it be better than staying in this ravine? Miss Gu is really kind-hearted. Ryo Kuwabara couldn't help but praise Gu Fengzi. He couldn't wait to ask, "When will we be going?" Husan secretly despised them. He thought to himself, so this is young mistress's uncle and aunt? That means that young mistress isn't much. No wonder young master didn't want to marry her back then. Marrying a girl from such a family is simply shameful. Chapter 244. Of course, the sooner the better. Husan quickly smiled and said, "Why don't I stay at the inn in town for a night? Second master can arrange the matters at home and find me at the inn tomorrow. Then, we can go to Qingzhou together. Or, it would be even better if we leave now." Miss Gu had instructed him that the sooner, the better. She also instructed him not to let the first branch of the Sang family know about this. Although Husan did not understand the reason, it would not be wrong to bring Ryo Kuwabara back as soon as possible. "Let's go now, let's go now." "No problem, no problem." Ryo Kuwabara was also afraid that a long delay would lead to trouble. He could not wait to rush to Gu Fengzi's side. If he was a step too late and this good job was snatched away by someone else, wouldn't his intestines turn green with regret? "All right. Then, second master, please pack up. We'll be on our way." Husan smiled. Ryo Kuwabara agreed and was about to get up to pack when he suddenly realized something and asked with a smile, "Little brother Husan, may I know, how much is my monthly salary?" Li Shi was already grinning from ear to ear at the side. Firstly, her husband had relied on her face to get this job, so she felt proud. Secondly, the family would have an additional source of income in the future. Speaking of which, it would be the Shi family's housekeeper in Qingzhou. Thirdly, when her husband went out, wouldn't she be able to do whatever she wanted with that vixen little hussy? She had to vent her anger properly. Hearing Ryo Kuwabara ask about his salary, Li quickly pricked up her ears to listen. Husan spread his hands and smiled awkwardly. "I'm not too sure about this. Second master, you are our young mistress's uncle, and Miss Gu personally sent someone to invite you. Your salary will definitely not be low. Moreover, this matter is not something that cannot be discussed. How could Miss Gu not give you face?" Li quickly smiled and asked, "Then, how much did the previous warehouse manager get?" This was a good question. Ryo Kuwabara could not help but look at his family's old woman with approval. Husan thought for a moment, then smiled and said, "It should be 2 or 3 taels. During the holidays, there will be additional rewards, and 3 meals a day will be free. Second master should know more than this." So many. Ryo Kuwabara and Li were so excited that they felt dizzy. They didn't have to pay for food and lodging, which was equivalent to a month's worth of profit. There were also gifts for the New Year and other festivals. Where else could he find such a good deal? "Brother Husan, please wait for a moment. I'll pack up and come over right away," Ryo Kuwabara said happily. Li sat with Husan in the hall, and the new concubine followed Ryo Kuwabara back to the room to help pack up. "Move faster. Just pick 2 sets of clothes and wrap them up." Sang Pingyong rubbed his hands and said happily. Just as he finished speaking, he added, Wait. You don't have to pack the best clothes. Just pack 2 sets of ordinary clothes." It was not as if the Shi family had no money. Miss Gu was so kind, so she was definitely not a stingy person. When the time came, if she saw that his clothes were not good, would she not make new ones for him? Why did he have to bring new ones? What a waste. "Yes, master." The new concubine lowered her head and helped him pack his clothes. She took them over and folded them on the bed. "What's wrong? You seem a little unhappy?" Ryo Kuwabara smiled and pulled the new concubine's hand. "Master." The new concubine raised her head and looked at him with tender and pitiful eyes. "Please bring this concubine along, master. How can there be no one by your side to serve you? Furthermore, old mistress hates this concubine so much. If master leaves this concubine at home, you might not see this concubine when you return. Without master's protection, old mistress will definitely not forgive this concubine." "Master, this concubine doesn't want to leave master." As the new concubine said that, she turned around and covered her face as she cried. Rio Kuwabara felt that it made sense and quickly comforted her. Then, he hesitated and said, "It's just that, if I bring you along, I don't know if Miss Gu will have any objections." The new concubine saw that he was moved by her words and quickly smiled. "What's so difficult about that? Wouldn't it be fine if master rented a room outside? Furthermore, who are you? Will Miss Gu not give you this much face?" Rio Kuwabara liked to hear this, but when he heard that he had to use money to rent a house, he could not help but feel his heart ache. He smacked his lips and said, "I don't know if renting a house in Qingzhou City is expensive." The new concubine spat in her heart and quickly smiled. Shipping warehouses are usually built at the docks near the water. It's not like it's a bustling area in Qingzhou City, so how expensive can it be? Since Miss Gu is so kind, master, if you say a few good words, she might even arrange a ready-made house for master. Master, if this concubine is not by master's side, won't master feel bored? Who will wash master's clothes? If master is tired, who will massage master's back? When Rio Kuwabara saw her charming appearance, how could he care about anything else? He unconsciously nodded and smiled. "What you said makes sense. It's still you who cares about master. All right, then it's decided. You should also pack up and come with me to Qingzhou City." "Yes, master." When the new concubine saw that Rio Kuwabara agreed, she was overjoyed. After helping him pack up, she returned to her room and also quickly packed up. When they were about to leave, Li saw the new concubine carrying 2 bags and following behind Rio Kuwabara. Li's suspicious gaze moved back and forth between the two of them. With a sullen face, she said, "You lowly servant, why aren't you giving the bags to master? Can you afford to delay master's journey?" The new concubine did not make a sound. She only raised a pair of delicate and pitiful eyes and quickly glanced at Rio Kuwabara. Rio Kuwabara coughed and said calmly, "Yenji will come with me to Qingzhou City. You stay at home and take good care of her." "What?" Li's eyes widened and she almost jumped up. What? When Rio Kuwabara saw that she had lost her composure and questioned him in a shrill voice, his heart was immediately filled with disgust. He was even more determined to take Yenji with him. He frowned and reprimanded, "Did you not hear me clearly? If you didn't hear me clearly, I'll say it again. I want to take Yenji with me." "No." Li angrily shouted and denied it without thinking. "It's not your turn to speak." Rio Kuwabara was furious. "In any case, it's not possible." Li grabbed Yenji and used all her strength to poke her head. She hatefully said, "What kind of bewitching potion did this damn vixen give master? You still want to go to Qingzhou City to enjoy life? No way. Rio Kuwabara, let me tell you, Miss Biao and I hit it off at first sight. Do you believe that I won't ask her to make the decision so that none of you can go? Preposterous. You dare." "Humph. See if I dare or not." When Husan saw that the two of them were arguing until their faces were red and their veins were bulging, he could not help but secretly frown. He felt even more disdain for them. Seeing that the couple almost got into a fight, and the main culprit, Yenji, was standing at the side with her head lowered, looking as if she was scared out of her wits, Husan knew that this family was not good people. Cough cough, second master, second madam, please calm down. Let's discuss things properly. They had the energy to argue, but Husan only wanted to quickly return and report back. He was not in the mood to watch the show. He hurriedly went forward and pulled Rio Kuwabara. "Little brother Husan, this matter has made you laugh. Sit down and wait for a while. It will be done in a while." Rio Kuwabara held back his anger and smiled to appease Husan. He turned his head and glared at Li and said in a low voice, "Stupid woman, come with me." Rio Kuwabara had already treated Husan as a servant in his heart. How could a master argue in front of a servant and let him see? Wouldn't that be too embarrassing? If they wanted to argue, they should go into the room and argue. However, Li was not willing to do so. She treated Husan as Gu Fengzi's representative. She thought to herself, "You dare to treat me like this in front of Miss Biao's people? Humph, I will let him see clearly what kind of person you are and go back to Miss Biao to judge. Let's see if Miss Biao will still take care of you. Why should I go over? What was there that couldn't be said in the open? Let me tell you, I won't go today." Rio Kuwabara, you bastard who spoils your concubine and neglects your wife. You want to be outstanding? Bah! Li put her hands on her hips and said fiercely. Are you looking for a beating? Rio Kuwabara had never been treated like this before. You still want to hit me? You want to hit me because of this vixen? Come on, hit me. Hit me. Li made a scene and moved forward. If it was a normal day, she would not dare to treat Rio Kuwabara like this. However, now that she had Miss Biao's support and Rio Kuwabara was about to ask Miss Biao to take care of him, she was suddenly full of confidence. What else did she have to worry about? Second master, second madam. Husan thought that it would be terrible if they really fought. If he messed up such a simple task like receiving someone, he would not be able to show his face in front of Miss Biao in the future. Seeing that the situation was not good, he hurriedly went forward to hold Rio Kuwabara's raised arm and said with a smile, Second master, second madam, we are an old married couple. What can't we talk about? Please calm down, calm down. When Li saw that Husan had stopped Rio Kuwabara, she felt even more proud. She was even more certain that Miss Biao was on her side. She could not help but cry and complain, Little brother Husan, you don't know how hard it is for me. Ever since this vixen married into our family, there has not been a day of peace in this family. This vixen has many tricks up her sleeves and has bewitched our master. No matter how I tried to persuade him, he would not listen. He even said that I was not virtuous and that I was a jealous woman. If I was really a jealous woman, would I let her marry into our family? Look at her, she did not lose an arm or a leg, nor did she lose a piece of flesh. I did not do anything to her, but our master still treats me like this. He brought this vixen to enjoy life and left me alone at home. Little brother Husan, please be the judge. Have I done anything wrong? Husan's ears were about to explode from her loud voice. He resisted the urge to shout at her and used the opportunity to push Rio Kuwabara away from Li. He quickly said with a smile, How about this, second master? How about you bring second madam along with you? In any case, Miss Biao did not say that the two of them could not go together. He would bring them along first. This Li looked like a difficult person to deal with. Moreover, his words carried little weight. How could he persuade her? From her words, it seemed that she had a good relationship with Miss Biao. If he offended her and she said something to Miss Biao, it would be disadvantageous to him. Chapter 245. Li was overjoyed when she heard that. Without waiting for Rio Kuwabara to speak, she quickly nodded. Good. That's a good idea. I haven't seen Miss Biao in a long time. I was just thinking of visiting her. Hearing her say that, even Rio Kuwabara, who had wanted to object, couldn't say anything. He only snorted unhappily. If you leave, there'll be no one else in this house. Are you not worried about leaving Ah Ro and Ah Yen at home? Hearing her husband mention her precious daughter, Li paused for a moment. However, when she saw Yenji standing meekly at the side with her head lowered, her hesitation immediately disappeared. Letting her wait bitterly at home as a haggard old woman, while the two of them lived happily in the big city. Just thinking about it made her extremely uncomfortable. She definitely couldn't let that happen. Moreover, she had everything at home. Her daughter was already so old. What was there to worry about? Later, she would instruct her daughter to look for Sang Hong and his wife for help if anything happened. She didn't believe that the two of them would be so heartless as to not even want to see her daughter. They're not children anymore. Why can't they be at home by themselves? Humph, if you're worried, then leave Yenji behind to take care of them. How about that? Li rolled her eyes at him. Yenji's heart was slightly moved. She didn't object to this. As long as Li wasn't there, it was heaven to her. If she didn't even have to deal with the two of them, then it would be even better. No. Ryo Kuwabara refused. Not bringing Yenji, but only Lee? Unless there was water in his head. Hadn't he seen enough of this old face? Did he want to bring her along to continue looking? With Yenji around, it would more or less alleviate his loneliness. Then hurry up and pack up. We'll set off now. Ryo Kuwabara saw that she was insistent and couldn't be bothered to say more. Anyway, if she wanted to follow, then so be it. If she dared to make a fuss in front of others, he had plenty of ways and time to deal with her behind his back. Don't worry, I'll be done soon. Li was overjoyed when she heard that and hurriedly went to tidy up. She then called Sang Yen and Sang Ro to give them some instructions. Naturally, he told Sang Yen to take good care of herself, not to feel wronged, close the door early at night, and not to go out if there was nothing important. Sang Ro did not have any nice words to say to her. She was scolded and threatened. The most important thing was that she was not allowed to be lazy and had to be quick and diligent. Otherwise, when she came back, she would teach her a lesson. Sang Ro lowered her head and lowered her eyes as she agreed timidly, but she was secretly overjoyed. Her parents weren't around, and Sang Yen was as honest as dough. Wasn't she the one who had the final say in this family? At least he wouldn't be so tired anymore. He could eat better and sleep more in the morning. She couldn't wait for them to leave. Damned girl, if I find out that a yen is missing a strand of hair or has lost weight, I'll break your legs. Lee left these harsh words and came out with a bundle. She unceremoniously stuffed it into Yenji's hands. Take good care of it. Yenji did not dare to object and quickly took it. Ryo Kuwabara was slightly dissatisfied and frowned, but he did not want to cause trouble at this critical juncture. He pretended not to see and smiled at Husan. Little brother Husan, let's go. Ah, okay. Husan was eager to hear that. He hurriedly led them into the carriage and drove away. Gu Fengzi saw that not only did Husan bring Ryo Kuwabara over, he even brought Li and Ryo Kuwabara's concubines over. This was exactly what she wanted. Husan, who was still a little uneasy, was greatly praised and rewarded. Husan was overjoyed. Gu Fengzi smiled and personally received Ryo Kuwabara and the other two. Just as Yenji said, without waiting for Ryo Kuwabara to speak, she took the initiative to arrange 3 rooms in a courtyard next to the warehouse for them to live in. They would share a courtyard with 2 other families. Ryo Kuwabara and his wife thanked her profusely and fawned over Gu Fengzi. Originally, Li was happily planning to visit the Shi family from time to talk to Gu Fengzi. However, Lan Xiang privately told her that it would not be good for her image. If others saw her, they would think that Miss Gu was specially taking care of them and would be jealous of them. It would not be worth it. She also said that young master and young mistress were not at home. Now that Miss Gu was busy inside and outside the household, how would she have time to see her? When she was free in the future, she would naturally send someone to invite her. Li heard that and gave up. After Gu Fengzi settled them down, she went to see Wang. She only told Wang that Sang Wan's maternal uncle and aunt came looking for a job. She saw that there was a shortage of people guarding the warehouse and planned to arrange for someone to go over. She asked Wang if it was appropriate. Wang's heart was filled with thoughts of her son who was injured and unclear. How could she care about anything else? She nodded and did not continue to argue. Gu Fengzi then went to make the arrangements. After that, things developed according to Gu Fengzi's plan. Ryo Kuwabara and his wife were greedy for money. Now that they had the convenience of guarding the warehouse, coupled with the occasional provocation, how could Ryo Kuwabara hold himself back? At first, he was still a little nervous when he tried to smuggle goods, but after tasting the benefits a few times, he became bolder and more unscrupulous. Gu Fengzi sneered in her heart and ordered the people to turn a blind eye to it. Once someone complained, she suppressed the matter and vaguely hinted that Ryo Kuwabara was young mistress's relative. As for the rest, she let them do as they wished. Everyone was angry but did not dare to say anything. However, due to the relationship between Miss Gu and young mistress, and the fact that this was the Shi family's business, the benefits would not fall on them even if they did not steal it. Why should they be nosy? Gradually, no one mentioned this matter again, and the shopkeepers above knew nothing about it. It was only until today, when it was the shopkeepers' turn to do a routine check, that they found many problems. When the shopkeepers asked, the people below naturally did not help Ryo Kuwabara. At this time, Gu Fengzi did not care about the shipping anymore, so the people took the opportunity to complain even more. The shopkeeper was shocked and angry. Due to Ryo Kuwabara's identity, he could not detain him. He only found an excuse to let him rest for a few days and planned to report this matter to young Master Shi first before making a decision. After all, Ryo Kuwabara's surname was Sang. But when Ryo Kuwabara heard that he was temporarily allowed to rest for 2 days, his face turned red. When he secretly inquired about the reason, how could he remain calm? Thus, he took the opportunity to rush to the Shi family. He must be faster than the shopkeepers and solve this matter before them. Otherwise, wouldn't it be embarrassing? Could the Shi family still use him? He could not bear to lose this job. He lived well and ate well. When people heard that he was young mistress's uncle, they said that he would have a bright future. He was just temporarily training and familiarizing himself with this place. This was also the Shi family's rule. Who would dare to neglect him? There were many who wanted to curry favor with him. He, Ryo Kuwabara, had never received such treatment in his life. This was the best and most glorious period of his life. Wouldn't it be a pity to end it like this? When Gu Fengzi heard Lan Xiang report that Ryo Kuwabara had an urgent matter to see her, she knew that the paper could not hide the fire. The matter was finally going to be exposed. She had been waiting for this day. Why would she try to help Ryo Kuwabara suppress this matter? It was more important to make a big scene. Go and calm him down. Tell him that I'm no longer in charge of this matter. Tell him to look for young mistress. Gu Fengzi said slowly, of course, you have to make it clear to him. Young mistress is someone who can't tolerate sand in her eyes. If she hears about this matter, she will probably be angry. Tell him to think of a comprehensive way to explain it slowly. After all, as an elder, being taught a lesson by a junior, that would be a huge loss of face. If he refuses to look for young mistress, tell him that he might be able to plead with young mistress. I'll go to my aunt's place first. Do you know what to do? This servant understands. Young mistress, please rest assured. If she did not understand, she would have been a servant for so many years in vain. It was not easy for her young mistress to set up Ryo Kuwabara and his wife. How could she really let him go to young mistress for help? Naturally, she would lead him to young mistress. Lan Xiang bowed and left. Gu Fengzi's lips curled into a cold smile. She sighed and muttered, Sangwan ah Sangwan, I want to see how you explain this matter to young mistress. Ryo Kuwabara was already anxious like an ant in a hot pot. When he saw someone calling him in, his flustered heart immediately calmed down and he hurriedly followed. Seeing that it was Lan Xiang who was waiting at the second door, although Ryo Kuwabara was a little disappointed, he still cheered up and went forward with a smile. Miss Lan Xiang, where is young Mistress Biao? I really have an urgent matter to discuss with young Mistress Biao. Lan Xiang smiled and said, if there's anything, just tell me. I will pass it on to young Mistress Biao. Our young Mistress Biao is currently serving young Mistress Biao. How can she leave? Why don't you come back tomorrow? How could Ryo Kuwabara wait until tomorrow? His face and ears turned red and he was embarrassed for a while. Gritting his teeth, he finally explained the matter. Of course, the process was brief. He only said that he was muddle-headed and deserved to die. He shouldn't have listened to other people's instigation and made such a big mistake. He begged young Mistress Biao to help him. Otherwise, only death awaited him. Lan Xiang seemed to be frightened by his words. After a while, she came back to her senses and anxiously said, how can you be so muddle-headed and do such a thing? Our family's young mistress was kind enough to help you. Instead of giving her face, you created such a scene. This time, I'm afraid even our young mistress will have to ask for forgiveness. How can she help you? Miss Lan Xiang, you must help me put in a good word in front of young Mistress Biao. I really know my mistake. I won't do it again. I swear that in the future, I will do things honestly and will not embarrass young Mistress Biao. Ryo Kuwabara was reprimanded by Lan Xiang and he couldn't help but feel anxious and ashamed. Lan Xiang unwillingly muttered for a while and sighed. Second old Master Biao, young Mistress Biao doesn't care about outside matters now. Even if she wants to help you, she can't. Why don't I help you to see if young Mistress Biao is free and you can ask young Mistress Biao for help? No. You must not tell her. Before Lan Xiang could think of a way to change the topic from young Mistress Biao to young Mistress Biao, Ryo Kuwabara was so anxious that he almost jumped up. He waved his hands and hurriedly objected. You can't tell her. You must not tell her about this matter. Chapter 246. On the surface, Sang Wan, that wretched lass, treated the both of them nicely. In fact, she was no different from the heartless Sang Hong, Sang Yufei, and Fong Fong. If she were to find out about this matter, she would be the first to not let him off. She would not help him deal with this matter. Lan Xiang was overjoyed when she heard this, but her expression did not change. Instead, she asked curiously, Why? Young mistress is your biological niece. If she is willing to speak, one sentence from her would be more than a few sentences from my family's young mistress. The more Ryo Kuwabara did not dare to tell Sang Wan, the more Lan Xiang wanted to ask Sang Wan to make the decision. Ryo Kuwabara was so anxious that his eyes were in a mess. He begged, Miss Lan Xiang, you really can't tell her. You don't know that niece of mine. If she knew, she would not understand my difficulties and would not forgive me for being foolish. Instead, she would not let me go and torture me to death. Young mistress, you must not tell her. Lan Xiang saw his panicked and fearful appearance and found it funny. She could not help but sympathize with him. She sighed and said, You are right. Young mistress is very strict in managing the household. She cannot tolerate sand in her eyes. If she knew, she would definitely hand you over to the business to be dealt with. She would not say a word. Isn't that so? Ryo Kuwabara was so anxious that he rubbed his hands. Lan Xiang sighed again and said, Who doesn't make mistakes? I see that you are truly remorseful. Do you want me to show you a way out? If it works, it is your good fortune. If it doesn't, you can't blame me. Regardless of whether it works or not, you cannot tell anyone that this idea was given to you by me. Ryo Kuwabara was hesitating. Now that he had grasped onto a life-saving straw, how could he reject it? He hurriedly nodded in agreement and asked Lan Xiang for guidance. Lan Xiang smiled and said, I am just a servant. What I am most afraid of is getting into trouble. I will only believe you if you make an oath. Not to mention swearing, even if he asked Ryo Kuwabara to kneel down and kowtow, as long as he could pass, he would be willing to do so. Immediately, he turned his hand to the sky and swore according to Lan Xiang's words. He impatiently said, Miss Lan Xiang, what ideas do you have? Quickly tell me. Lan Xiang smiled and said, Our first madam always abstains from meat and recites Buddhist scriptures. She is the most benevolent and compassionate. Why don't I bring you to beg her? It just so happens that my family's young miss is also in front of First Madam. I'll give her a look, and she'll definitely put in a few good words for you. Ryo Kuwabara's eyes lit up. That's right, there's still First Madam. Logically speaking, he and First Madam were of the same generation, and they were also in-laws. Since First Madam was an old lady who abstained from meat and prayed to Buddha and Bodhisattva, she would definitely be easy to talk to. As long as First Madam didn't make a fuss about it, Shi Fengju and Wan Nyang were juniors. Wouldn't they have to listen to her? Ryo Kuwabara even had a rogue thought. She was just a woman in the inner courtyard. If a man like him asked, she would be embarrassed to say no, right? Good. That's the best. Miss Lan Xiang, I'll have to trouble you to bring me to see First Madam. Ryo Kuwabara couldn't wait. Lan Xiang secretly sneered in her heart, but on the surface, she said, All right, then let's go. Once you see First Madam, you have to seize the opportunity to lower your attitude and quickly beg for mercy. First Madam is soft-hearted. As long as she agrees, she definitely won't go back on her words. Also, if First Madam knows that it was my family's young miss who asked you to do this job on the ship, I'm afraid that my family's young miss won't be able to help you. Rio Kuwabara was startled and immediately understood. He hurriedly said, Miss Biao originally had good intentions. How could I harm her? I asked Miss Biao to take care of this job myself. Lan Xiang smiled with satisfaction, but then asked, logically speaking, First Madam is closer to you. Then why didn't you ask First Madam to take care of you? Rio Kuwabara said, at that time, Wan Yang wasn't in the residence, and Miss Biao happened to be in charge of the ship's operations. How tactful. Yes. That's exactly the case. Lan Xiang hurriedly said with a smile, my family's young miss has always respected First Madam. Since you are First Madam's uncle, there's no reason for Miss Biao not to help you. Miss Biao has good intentions. I am ashamed to have let Miss Biao down. Rio Kuwabara hurriedly smiled. Why did those words sound so awkward and unpleasant to the ears? Lan Xiang frowned slightly and snorted softly. Let's go. We'll go see First Madam now. After saying that, she led the way and ignored Rio Kuwabara. Gu Fengzi was chatting with Wang when she suddenly heard that the Sang family's second master had requested an audience. Startled, Wang asked, the Sang family's second master? Gu Fengzi coughed and replied with a smile, Aunt, have you forgotten? I told you before that I had arranged a job for the Sang family's second master. He should be in Qingzhou right now. But it's strange. Why would he want to see you? Oh, my memory. Wang smiled in realization. After thinking for a while, she said, let him in. He must have something to say. In the end, it was her daughter-in-law's family. How could Wang think of anything else? She even asked Gu Fengzi, Nanny Jiang, and the others to help her see if her clothes were appropriate. Who knew that Rio Kuwabara would kneel in front of her the moment he entered? He lowered his head and cried, First Madam, I know I was wrong. I beg First Madam to be merciful and forgive me this time. I won't dare to do it again. I beg First Madam. Everyone in the room, including Wang, except for Gu Fengzi and her servant, were dumbfounded. In an instant, there was complete silence. Only Rio Kuwabara was crying and begging for mercy. Gu Fengzi pretended to be surprised and raised her handkerchief to cover her face. In reality, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to hold back her laughter. Exchanging a glance with Lan Xiang, Gu Fengzi was overjoyed. She didn't know what that sly girl had told Rio Kuwabara to cause such a scene. Her aunt had never seen such a scene before. It would be strange if she wasn't frightened. First Madam, I beg you to say something. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I beg you to forgive me and leave me some face. I won't dare to do it again. I promise, I won't dare to do it again. You are a merciful person like Bodhisattva. Why lower yourself to the level of someone like me? Rio Kuwabara saw that Wang had no reaction and was even more frightened. Other than begging for mercy, he continued to flatter Wang, praising her as if she was the best in the world and despising himself. Heavenly Bodhisattva. What exactly is going on? Wang regained her composure and exclaimed. She was really frightened. Second Old Master Sang was her daughter-in-law's uncle. Her daughter-in-law's parents had both passed away, so he was her proper elder. He was on the same level as her. But the moment this person came in, he knelt and begged for mercy in front of her. He was clearly a servant. Now, she was completely dumbfounded. Gu Fengzi saw that the commotion was about to end. She coughed heavily and raised her voice. Second Old Master Sang, please wait a moment. Tell me what exactly is going on. If you don't tell me clearly, how can my aunt help you? That's right. What exactly is going on? Wang felt uneasy and looked at Rio Kuwabara with a frown. This person's vulgar actions carried a servile aura and a wretched appearance. His appearance was also not pleasing to the eye. Wang had a very bad impression of him. Rio Kuwabara raised his eyes and glanced at Gu Fengzi. Miss Biao really didn't ignore me. She's already helping me. I'll tell you now. Rio Kuwabara raised his sleeve to wipe his tears and said, Wait. Gu Fengzi's eyes swept across the crowd and said, Aunt, it's better to let the servants go out and hide. If the servants went out and said a few words, then it would be lively. Let's see if that Sang Wan still has any face left. Gu Fengzi secretly sneered. And Wang nodded. With a wave of her hand, other than Nanny Jiang, the rest retreated. She then turned to Rio Kuwabara and said, You should get up too. The word second old master-in-law made Wang feel awkward just thinking about it. She could not bring herself to say it out loud. I'll just say it this way. I've let down the Shi family and old mistress. I'm too ashamed to get up. When Rio Kuwabara heard that old mistress wanted him to get up, his heart shook. There's hope. Old mistress's heart is indeed not bad. He wanted to kneel. Originally, it had nothing to do with Wang. But when she thought of his identity, Wang felt that it was particularly glaring to see him kneeling in front of her. Her brows furrowed slightly. Gu Fengzi quickly smiled and said, Second old master-in-law, you should get up. You're our young mistress's uncle. No matter how big the matter is, there's no reason for you to kneel. As she said that, she gestured for Lan Xiang to help him up. Feng is right. Quickly get up and sit down. Wang said lightly. Thank you, old mistress. Thank you, Miss Biao. Rio Kuwabara did not wait for Lan Xiang to help him up. Besides, Lan Xiang did not really want to help him up. She only went to his side and raised her hand to help him up. Rio Kuwabara got up and bowed to Wang and Gu Fengzi. Only then did he sit down under Lan Xiang's guidance. Rio Kuwabara thought that he was being courteous, but he did not know that he had lowered his status to the extreme. But he should not have such a lowly status. The more courteous he was, the more Wang despised him. She was just disgusted earlier, but now she was disgusted. Aunt's heart is the best. You don't have to hide anything. Just say it. Gu Fengzi kindly reminded him again. Rio Kuwabara hurriedly nodded and smiled. After all, he was the one who did it. Rio Kuwabara still felt quite embarrassed. There were a few times when he wanted to say something, but he could not say it. Instead, his face flushed red. In the end, he made up his mind. If he did not say it, he would have made a wasted trip today. It would only be worse when he returned. Old mistress, this matter is really not easy to talk about. After all, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have been blinded by money. I shouldn't have been blinded by lard. Rio Kuwabara stuttered and finally said everything that he had done. Then, he unconsciously stood up again. Old mistress, I was wrong. I really know that I was wrong. I beg old mistress to forgive me this time. If this matter is made public, I will lose face in front of everyone. How can I continue to work in the future? Moreover, Wan Yang will also lose face. I promise, it won't happen again. Chapter 247. How could there be such a thing? What you said is all true. Wang was shocked and angry. Rio Kuwabara lowered his head and was speechless. Wang did not know what to say and her heart went blank. Never in her wildest dreams would she have thought that Rio Kuwabara was such a person. Since he was here to work, instead of helping his relatives, he tried to poach them and even had the nerve to plead with her. If this matter were to be made known, not only would Sang Wan lose face, but would the Shi family have any? Old mistress, enough. Wang raised her hand to stop him and said, I don't know much about business matters, so there's no point in telling me. Nanny Jiang, send someone to invite Fengju back. And Sang Wan, tell her to come over too. Wang's face darkened. Old mistress, then you agree not to pursue this matter with me? Rio Kuwabara quickly asked. This was what he was concerned about. If Wang did not agree, he would be dead meat if he fell into the hands of Shi Fengju and Sang Wan. This was the first time Wang had met someone who was more unreasonable than her. Even Gu Jin in the past, although he was a scoundrel, his mind was clear, unlike Ryo Kuwabara. Why couldn't this person understand what she was saying? Wang could not help but be annoyed. When she spoke again, her tone was a little stiff. Let's wait for Fengju and Wan Yang to come before we talk about this. Old mistress, you. Second old master. Gu Fengzi quickly said with a smile. Don't worry, you're an elder. When big cousin and big sister come, we can discuss this matter again. There will definitely be a solution. Gu Fengzi got up and went to Wang's side. Pulling Wang's arm, she lowered her eyes and whispered guiltily, Aunt, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have. It's none of your business. You have good intentions. Wang was even more annoyed in her heart, but she was still amiable to Gu Fengzi. But what if elder sister? Humph. Wang's face darkened. Her. Could it be that she still has the face to blame you? Auntie, I'm not senile yet. Nanny Jiang saw that Wang was angry and began to ignore everything. It wasn't good to say these words in front of Ryo Kuwabara, so she smiled and said, First madam, in this servant's opinion, why don't we ask second master to go and rest first? He must be tired after talking for so long. Mama Jiang had good intentions. She didn't want Ryo Kuwabara to be embarrassed here. Unexpectedly, Ryo Kuwabara panicked when he heard that. He quickly waved his hand and said, I'm not tired. I'm not tired at all. I'm fine. First madam, I'll wait here. Wang understood Mama Jiang's meaning and ignored Ryo Kuwabara's words. She nodded and said, Then bring him down to have a seat. Have someone prepare tea and serve him well. Don't say that our Shi family has no manners and neglects our relatives. First madam, I really... Second Master Ryo. First madam is here, so don't worry. Quickly go and rest with Mama Jiang. Gu Fengzi hurriedly said. That's fine too. Seeing Gu Fengzi raise her eyebrows and give him a look, Ryo Kuwabara felt relieved and followed Mama Jiang. What is this? I'm so angry. How could there be such an elder in Wan Nyong's family? Once Ryo Kuwabara left, Wang became angrier the more she thought about it. She slammed her hand heavily on the coffee table. Aunt, please calm down, Gu Fengzi hurriedly said with a smile. Actually, which family doesn't have a few unreliable relatives? That's nothing. It's just that big sister should have reported it to you long ago so that you and I would have known. Back then, when he came to me, I wouldn't have agreed so easily. Wang sighed and said, You're right. No wonder the Sang family only sent her elder brother and sister-in-law. Previously, I was puzzled. Didn't her uncle and aunt come? Why didn't they show their faces? So that's how it is. Gu Fengzi hurriedly said, Logically speaking, I shouldn't be the one to say this. However, you've already seen the second master of the in-laws. He's not someone who can be seen in public. Big sister cares a lot about her reputation, so it's normal that she didn't bring them here. It was fine if she didn't want to listen, but after hearing it, Wang felt even more disgusted. She frowned and said, Wan Yang has always been gentle and virtuous. I only thought of her as a virtuous and honest person. I didn't expect her to be so scheming. She's so vain. Did she think that this kind of thing could be hidden for a long time? If she was really honest, she would have reported it to me long ago. Today's matter wouldn't have happened. Now this is great. She was guarding the warehouse, but she stole from her own people. If she was an unrelated person, the shopkeepers would have sent her to the authorities long ago. She still has the nerve to come here and beg for mercy. How shameless! Recalling his servile appearance just now, Wang felt even more disgusted. Aunt, don't say that. In the end, she's still sister's relative. Gu Fengzi hurriedly persuaded from the side. She paused for a moment before whispering, Sister served aunt with all her heart and took care of big cousin. Even if she didn't have any merit, she still worked hard. Aunt, you should at least leave some face for sister. Wang let out a long sigh. The anger in her heart subsided without any reason. She held Gu Fengzi's hand and sighed. Feng you're always so considerate. Wan Yang treated you so badly, but you still treat her with sincerity. That's really rare. If Sang-Wan had your breadth of mind, the matter between you and Fengju wouldn't be in a deadlock until now. Wang Shi regretted her slip of the tongue and brought it up at this moment. She coughed and remained silent. Gu Fengzi forced a smile. Aunt, it's all right. I can wait. Really? One day, big cousin and sister will see my sincerity. It's been hard on you. Wang sighed softly. She looked at Gu Fengzi with even more pity in her eyes. Regarding this matter, Wang was caught in a dilemma. On one side was her son, and on the other was her niece who grew up by her side. Both of them insisted on not giving in, and the one who was in the most difficult position was her. Aunt, big cousin and sister might come in a while. I think it's better for me to avoid them. I'm afraid that sister will misunderstand. Gu Fengzi suddenly said. Wang disagreed and felt that it might not be the case. However, Gu Fengzi's current status was very awkward. If Sang-Wan was really suspicious of her, it would be unavoidable for her to cause more trouble. Avoiding them had its benefits, so she nodded. Aunt, you must talk to sister nicely about this matter later. Don't be anxious, and don't be angry. To say something that I shouldn't say, it's not worth it to make mother and daughter-in-law unhappy over such a person. Gu Fengzi smiled and walked towards the warm room. Suddenly, she turned back and smiled. All right, I got it. Wang Shi looked at her with a smile. Furthermore, Shi Fengju did not go to the store's inventory for the past 2 days. The Shi family's rule was that each store's inventory would be done by their own shopkeeper every month. Every 2 months, the inventory would be done by the higher-ups. Every quarter, all the business inventory would be gathered in front of him. As for the monthly and bi-monthly inventory, other than the especially important ones, he would look through them in detail. The rest were just random checks. Today's weather was good. After breakfast, Shi Fengju accompanied Sang-Wan for a walk in the garden. When the two of them came to the lakeside, they saw the half-blooming lotus flowers and green lotus leaves. They could not help but be interested and ordered the boat maid to row the boat over. They boarded the boat and admired the flowers on the lake. When the two of them were in high spirits, Chong Huan suddenly came to look for them. She said that there was an urgent matter in the store and asked Shi Fengju to go over immediately. Shi Fengju naturally did not decline, and the two of them returned to Ning Garden. Sang-Wan helped him change his clothes and sent him out. She then sat in the room. Not long after Shi Fengju left, Wang sent someone to invite her over. Sang-Wan did not expect that Shi Fengju leaving the Fu and her going to see her mother-in-law were actually for the same matter. She tidied up a little and hurried over. When she entered the main hall, Sang-Wan found that the atmosphere was a little strange. Beside Wang, there was only Jiang Mama serving her. Xiu Chun and the other maidservants had all retreated outside. Looking at Wang's expression, although it was calm, Sang-Wan could keenly feel a kind of calmness. As for Jiang Mama, her eyes were lowered and her hands were loosely folded in front of her. She did not look at her. Sang-Wan went forward and bowed. She smiled and said, I don't know why mother has called your daughter-in-law over. Wang took a deep breath and said with a faint smile, Can't I call you over for a chat if there's nothing important? Sit down. Daughter-in-law didn't mean that. It's daughter-in-law's good fortune to be able to accompany mother to relieve your boredom. Sang-Wan smiled and sat down. Wang was not good at beating around the bush. She thought for a moment and said, Do you have an uncle and aunt in your maternal family? When Sang-Wan heard her mention this, her heart tightened. She secretly paid attention and nodded with a smile. Yes. Then they're your elders. Wang smiled and said, If I'm not wrong, they've never come to our home before, right? When did you invite them over? I want to meet them. Why did mother suddenly think of this? Sang-Wan asked with a smile. Wang Shi saw that she didn't answer her question directly and instead asked her a question. Firstly, it was disrespectful and secondly, it was a sign of guilt. Her expression immediately changed and she said unhappily, "I asked you a question and you asked me a question back. I suddenly thought of this today. We're all relatives, but we've never met. How can this be? Those who don't know will think that our Shi family is looking down on others." Sang-won naturally did not believe that Wang suddenly thought of this matter. Although she did not know what happened, she guessed that this matter was most likely related to Gu Fengzi. Sang-won's face suddenly stiffened and she lowered her eyes without saying a word. Wang saw that her vanity was still causing trouble and that she was unwilling to tell her the truth at this time. She could not help but feel annoyed and was about to flare up when Sang-won raised her head and said, "Since mother said so, I'll send someone to bring second uncle and second aunt to the residence later. However, if second uncle and second aunt are rude in any way, mother, please don't take it to heart." Sang-won sighed secretly. Since Wang had said so, she guessed that this matter could not be hidden for long. She might as well say it out loud. Wang heard her say so and her heart was slightly satisfied. She smiled and said, "What a joke. You're just a junior. How can you say that about your own uncle and aunt? Wan Yang, this is not something you should say. They're guests. We're lucky that we're not rude and become a joke. How can it be that they're the ones being rude?" Chapter 248. How should she say that? Sang-won's face instantly turned red. Just as Wang said, second uncle and second aunt were her elders. No matter how bad they were, it was not up to her to criticize them. Furthermore, she was saying it in front of her mother-in-law. This made it even more difficult for her to say it. Wang saw her like this and knew that there was no point in continuing to pretend, so she sneered, "You're a smart one. Previously, you kept everything from me because you were sure that I didn't know. Now that I asked you, you guessed that I knew something and said it directly without any hesitation. Sang-won, Sang-won, you're quite scheming." "Mother." Sang-won's expression changed and she suddenly stood up with her head bowed. "Daughter-in-law doesn't know what mother means. Mother, please enlighten me." "You don't know what it means?" Wang sneered. "Enlighten me? I'm embarrassed to say it. Nanny Jiang, you tell young mistress." "Yes," Nanny Jiang replied. She glanced at Sang-won with some pity before recounting everything that had happened just now. Without waiting for her to finish, Sang-won's face had already changed and she was stunned. Second uncle and second aunt left the village for no reason. They came to Qingzhou and entered the Shi family's business and did such a thing. Not only that, they even went to her mother-in-law to plead for mercy. No wonder her mother-in-law just now? Sang-won felt even more humiliated and her heart turned cold at the same time. Wang had clearly seen Ryo Kuwabara, but deliberately pretended as if nothing had happened and used those words to test her. What kind of person did she think she was? In her heart, what was her daughter-in-law? Sang-won suddenly felt a little disheartened. "What do you have to say?" Wang saw that her expression was sad, but she was in a daze and did not say a word, so she asked faintly. Sang-won had already lost her temper, so how could she still have the mood to deal with her? Hearing this, she smiled bitterly and said, "Daughter-in-law has nothing to say. Mother, do as you see fit. I'm afraid you already have a plan in mind, so why are you testing me again? Even if you're not tired, I am." Wang didn't expect that Sang-won would actually dare to give her a straight answer. She immediately stopped and stared at her. "At my disposal? Aren't you going to plead for him?" Sang-won shook her head. "Daughter-in-law doesn't have the face to beg for mercy. Everything will be decided by mother." "Plead for mercy? I'm afraid he's just asking to be humiliated." Moreover, even if she didn't beg for leniency today, she had already suffered enough humiliation. Why should she say anything more? At this moment, even Nanny Jiang could tell that something was wrong with Sang-won. She couldn't help but glance at her worriedly. Stunned, Wang was even more furious. She was so angry that she laughed and said, Good. She is indeed our Shi family's daughter-in-law, putting righteousness before family and letting me punish her however I want. If that's the case, then I'll really punish her. When the time comes, you'd better not have anything to say. Wan Yong definitely has nothing to say. Sang Wan replied faintly. You. Wang was fuming with anger because of her non-resistance and uncooperative attitude. In addition, she was already sullen because of the matter with Rio Kuwabara. At this moment she shouted angrily, Nanny Jiang, get someone to tie up that Rio Kuwabara and send him to the yamen. Old mistress. Nanny Jiang was taken aback and hurriedly said to Sang Wan, Young mistress, quickly plead with old mistress and put in a few good words. This matter can't be done like this. Sang Wan cast a grateful glance at Nanny Jiang, but she lowered her eyes and didn't say anything. Nanny Jiang, what are you waiting for? Wang said coldly, inform the shopkeepers of our business to send someone over and report this matter to the prefectural magistrate. Let the prefectural magistrate handle this matter impartially. This matter is handled reasonably, so what are you waiting for? Old mistress, you can't do this. Nanny Jiang knelt down and pleaded, Old mistress, the old slave thinks it's better to wait for young master to return and let him handle this matter. Get up. Wang said angrily, Why do I need your kindness? Humph. She acted as if nothing happened and didn't find it inappropriate. What else do you have to say? In the warm room, Gu Fengzi was also secretly anxious. She couldn't help but scold Nanny Jiang for being meddlesome. If this matter was really brought to court, it wouldn't be able to be covered up outside the household, let alone within the household. It would definitely become a big news in Qingzhou City. Her aunt only cared about being happy now, but she would definitely regret it later. When she regretted it, she would naturally vent her anger on Sang Wan for implicating the Shi family's reputation. This crack in her heart wouldn't be so easily erased. When that time came, Sang Wan would have to deal with her aunt in a terrible state. How would she have the energy to find trouble with her? Sang Wan, who had been silent all this while, raised her head and said, Mother has her own ideas. Naturally, I will listen to Mother's decision. Daughter-in-law's words carry little weight and I dare not say much. I will do as Mother says. If she really wanted to handle this matter properly, she would naturally tell her about it the moment she arrived instead of testing her. Since she had tested her, it could be seen that she had a spot in her heart. Sang Wan's interest waned and she lost the mood to plead for leniency. Even if she did plead, she would only be asking for humiliation. Did you hear that? Wang saw Sang Wan's indifferent attitude and became angrier. She looked at Nanny Jiang and said sternly, Who gave you the courage? Even you are rebelling. Nanny Jiang didn't dare to insist and could only reluctantly agree. She looked at Sang Wan awkwardly and left with her head lowered. Only Wang and Sang Wan were left in the room. One's face was full of anger while the other was indifferent. Both of them didn't speak and the atmosphere was strange. Gu Fengzi, who was in the warm room, smiled slightly and put her heart at ease. Although Nanny Jiang took the order and left, how would she dare to really send Rio Kuwabara to the yamen? She knew her master's temperament very well. If she didn't care about anything in a fit of anger, she would definitely regret it later. She had served Wang Shi for decades, so she naturally knew what she should do to truly treat her master well. Therefore, although she went out, she only stood at the door and looked around, hoping that Shi Fengju would hurry back. She didn't touch Rio Kuwabara at all. When Shi Fengju arrived at the business and heard the shopkeepers talk about this matter, he was stunned for a moment. Rio Kuwabara's job was just to guard the warehouse. Shi Fengju didn't usually go to the warehouse and such a small position didn't need to be reported to Shi Fengju. Therefore, he didn't know that Rio Kuwabara was actually in his family's business. When he found out that Rio Kuwabara came in during the period when Gu Fengzi was in charge of the shipping, Shi Fengju knew what was going on and didn't ask. It would be useless to ask. Gu Fengzi was naturally thorough in her work. If this matter was pinned on her, she would naturally have a way to explain it. The matter had already happened and he wasn't interested in it. Shi Fengju listened to the shopkeeper expressionlessly and ordered Chong Huan to personally bring Rio Kuwabara over. Naturally, he couldn't use him anymore, but he couldn't punish him. He could just let him leave and settle this matter privately. As for the deficit, on the surface, he had to say that Rio Kuwabara had spat out all of it. In reality, he could only take a loss and use his own money to make up for it. Unexpectedly, not long after, Jean Juan hurriedly ran back and said, "First young master, second old master has left." This servant asked second madam, and second madam said that he went to our residence to plead for leniency. Shi Fengju raised his eyebrows and immediately got up to return to the residence. Shi Fengju thought that he would either go to find Sang Wan or Gu Fengzi, so he went to Ning Garden as soon as he returned. Unexpectedly, he heard from Xing Ji that eldest young mistress had been called over by eldest madam. Shi Fengju knew that something was wrong and hurriedly rushed to the main courtyard. He happened to see Nurse Jiang anxiously looking around the door. "Eldest young master, you're finally back." Nurse Jiang saw that he was relieved and hurriedly went forward to say, "Quickly go and persuade eldest madam. Eldest madam is very angry. I don't know what's wrong with eldest young mistress, but she won't say a single word. She's in a deadlock right now." "Nurse Jiang, don't worry. What's going on?" Shi Fengju was no longer anxious and stopped to ask Nurse Jiang. Nurse Jiang didn't care about avoiding suspicion and told him everything about the confrontation between Wang and Sang Wan. She then sighed and said, "I don't know what's wrong with eldest young mistress today. If she was willing to give in and plead for leniency, eldest madam wouldn't be so angry. Eldest young master, please persuade eldest young mistress later. If eldest madam becomes prejudiced against her because of this, I'm afraid that this residence won't be peaceful in the future." Shi Fengju nodded. "Nurse Jiang, don't worry. I know what to do." When this happened, Wan Yang was still with me in Hondon. She didn't know anything about it. My mother shouldn't have tested her like that. Mother clearly doesn't believe her. If she were to give in and plead for leniency, how could she say it? Nurse Jiang was startled and a little stunned. Shi Fengju smiled faintly and walked in. "Mother." Shi Fengju's call broke the strange silence in the hall. Wang and Sang Wan both relaxed slightly. "Umph." Wang glared at him unhappily. "Wan Yang," Shi Fengju gently pulled Sang Wan. "Come, sit down and talk." Wang's face darkened and she stared at Sang Wan without saying a word. Sang Wan gently brushed away Shi Fengju's hand and stood still. Seeing her like this, Wang did not feel relieved. Instead, she sneered, "Fengju, sit down. She's in a bad mood now. Why would she put our Shi family in her eyes?" Sang Wan's body stiffened and she bit her lip without saying a word. "Mother," Shi Fengju frowned, "I've heard from Nurse Jiang that this has nothing to do with Wan Yang. Why are you venting your anger on her?" "What did you say?" Wang stared at Shi Fengju as if she didn't know him. "Are you blaming me?" "I'll deal with this matter." "Mother, you don't have to worry about it," Shi Fengju insisted. Wang sure only felt a wave of anger rush to her head, causing her to feel dizzy. If it weren't for Sang Wan's vanity and dignity, she wouldn't have agreed to let Rio Kuwabara enter the Shi family's business when he came looking for her. Now that he had done such a shameless thing, could it be that she couldn't even complain a little? Because of this, Sang Wan had a conflict with him. Now that his son was back, he even seemed to dislike him for being a busybody. Chapter 249. Wang's eyes became moist and she pointed at Shi Fengju with a trembling finger. You, for your wife, you're blaming me. Fengju, are you still my son? For your wife, you really don't care about anyone else? Mother. Shi Fengju was put in a difficult position when he saw his mother like this. What nonsense are you talking about? What good will it do for our family if this matter gets out? How can I not know? Wang said angrily, I'm just angry and I have to vent my anger. Otherwise, wouldn't it be too easy for those with bad intentions? Although this matter has nothing to do with Wan Yang, if she had told her about her uncle's character, Feng wouldn't have taken him in when he came begging. Feng had good intentions, but now, she had to worry about whether or not she would be misunderstood by others. What about you? You're protecting your wife without distinguishing between right and wrong. Isn't she in the wrong for this matter? Gu Fengzi saw that Wang was choking with sobs and that she was being mentioned. Knowing that she could no longer avoid it, she came out from the warm room and tugged at Wang's arm. Aunt, don't say any more. Calm down. This matter, don't worry about it. Before Gu Fengzi could finish her sentence, Wang interrupted her angrily. Wang said coldly, "Stand aside and don't make a sound, lest they take their anger out on you." Gu Fengzi opened her mouth awkwardly and glanced at Shi Fengju and Sang Wan before standing silently beside Wang. Shi Fengju didn't even bother to look at her with an inquiring or condemning gaze and said to Sang Wan, "You go back to Ning Garden first. Cousin, you go back first too." Sang Wan saw that her mother-in-law didn't speak, so she bowed to her and turned to leave silently. Gu Fengzi didn't want to leave, so she stood beside Wang and pretended that she didn't hear anything. Shi Fengju wouldn't allow her to pretend to be deaf and mute, so he stared at her and said, "Cousin, you go back too." Gu Fengzi could only nod and said softly to Wang, "Aunt, if you have something to say it to cousin, don't be angry. Hurry up and leave." Shi Fengju could not bear to see her like that. He suppressed his disgust and his tone became cold. Gu Fengzi's originally cold heart was suddenly filled with bitterness. Smiling slightly, she left in dejection. Wang Shi had nothing more to say to her son about this matter. She couldn't even get angry when she saw the situation. She just kept quiet with a cold face. Gu Fengzi went out and saw Jiang Mama standing outside. She immediately understood that she didn't do as Wang said. Gu Fengzi could not help but feel a burst of anger. She stopped in her tracks and stared at Nanny Jiang. Suddenly, her lips curved into a smile. Nanny Jiang is really loyal to Aunt Wang. I don't know if Aunt will still treat Mama as her confidant in the future. Jiang Mama's expression didn't change. She glanced at Gu Fengzi and said lightly, "Madam is impulsive, and the decisions she makes when she is impulsive may not be right. Old slave is loyal to Madam, so how can he do something that she will regret in the future? If Madam punishes the old slave because of this, the old slave will have no complaints." Gu Fengzi sneered and didn't say anything, then left. "Mother," Shi Fengju sat down next to Wang and said, "I just persuaded Jiang Mama, and she also told me what happened. If this person is sent to the yamen, it won't be easy to get him out. Aren't you making things difficult for our family by doing this?" "Making things difficult for our family?" Wang coldly snorted. "That Rio Kuwabara is surnamed Sang. What does he have to do with our family?" "But he is still our family's relative," Shi Fengju said. Wang was speechless. If Rio Kuwabara was really sent to the yamen, wouldn't the money be taken from the Shi family in the end? If they didn't take it, they would be too harsh and heartless. If they took it, wouldn't they be slapping their own mouth? This person is too greedy and should be taught a lesson. Otherwise, who knows what worse things he will do in the future. Wang was still angry. Shi Fengju said, "If you ask me, I shouldn't have let him work in our family's business. If I was at home, I definitely wouldn't have allowed this to happen." Hearing this, Wang Shi glared at him and questioned, "Don't make oblique accusations here. Are you blaming Feng Er? Let me tell you, Feng Er didn't do this on her own. I agreed to it." How can you blame Feng Er for the Sang family's failure? Feng Er had good intentions, but now she has no one to complain to. Shi Fengju wasn't surprised at all. He sneered in his heart. It seemed like she had completely forgotten his warning. He said to not use his mother to make an issue out of it, and to not use his mother to do things, but she obviously didn't take his words to heart. "There's no point in talking about this now. I will take care of this matter properly. Mother, please calm down. Don't look at anything else. For the sake of second uncle and Wan Yang taking care of you and taking care of this family, please don't get involved in this matter." Shi Fengju sighed. Hearing him mention Sang Yufei, Wang's expression softened, and the anger in her heart dissipated. She thought to herself, "That's right. No matter what, I can't not give face to my son-in-law who came in third. My son-in-law is now in the Hanlin Academy. With him as a bridge, when my son goes to the capital to take the exam, he can visit 2 or 3 famous scholars. That's not bad." As for Wan Nyang, I'll just keep my distance from her in the future. I don't want people to feel vexed. Shi Fengju saw that she was deep in thought, relieved, relaxed, and frowning. He guessed what she was thinking and said, "Mother, don't blame me for protecting Wan Nyang. You really can't blame her for this matter. So I'm the one in the wrong." Wang couldn't help but get angry when she heard this. She immediately shouted, "If she had told me about her maternal uncle's conduct earlier, how could this matter have happened today? It's obvious that she's vain and pretentious and deliberately concealed it." Shi Fengju said, "Wan Nyang is a junior. Even if her second uncle is in the wrong, how can she talk about it? And in front of Mother? Mother, if she suddenly talked about her maternal uncle and aunt's faults without any reason, I'm afraid Mother will be even more disgusted in your heart, right? You've really made things difficult for Wan Nyang this time. Moreover, she didn't conceal it. It's just that it's inconvenient for her to talk about it in front of you. I'm very clear about her family's matters. She didn't hide it from me." Wang was speechless for a moment. How could she admit that she was wrong? She coldly snorted and said, "Your mouth is getting sharper now. Everything about your good wife is good. You should just protect her." "Mother, all right, don't call me." Wang impatiently waved her hand. "You can go back. I'm just worrying for nothing. Humph. How many years do I have left to live? What am I after? This family property will be yours sooner or later. Even if you're happy and give it all to your wife's maternal family, I can't do anything about it. Get out. Don't annoy me here." Shi Fengju saw that although she spoke in a fit of anger, her tone had obviously softened. He knew that she was just being stubborn. He smiled and got up, bowed to her, and left. In the warm room of Ning Garden, Sangwon was sitting with a frown, deep in thought. When Shi Fengju lifted the curtain and went in, he saw her sitting there. Her slender and frail body seemed a little bleak and lonely for no reason. Shi Fengju suddenly felt a bit uncomfortable. He walked heavily and called out, "Wan Nyang, you're back." Sangwon turned her head and saw him. She stood up and greeted him with a smile. "Wan Nyang," Shi Fengju held her hand and kissed it gently, "I'm sorry to have wronged you again." Sangwon felt a bit heavy and uncomfortable. She forced a smile and shook her head. Mother has always been outspoken. It's not a big deal for her to say that. You, on the other hand, wasted a lot of time talking, didn't you? Shi Fengju chuckled and sat down with her. He simply pulled her into his arms. Sangwon couldn't struggle and had to comply. "How do you know that I convinced Mother?" "Your mother's son. You know how to explain to her. Of course she'll listen to you. Because of me, I've caused you trouble again and again. As your wife, I'm really ashamed. You're my wife. I should protect you. Why do you have to say that? Wan Nyang, you've become estranged from me." Shi Fengju hugged her arm tightly, as if she would disappear if he loosened his grip. Sangwon's eyes felt warm and tears almost fell. She blinked her moist eyes and smiled, "Fengju if," before she could finish her sentence, Sangwon stopped. Shi Fengju was waiting for her to continue, but she didn't finish her sentence. He smiled and asked, "If what?" "And nothing." Sangwon smiled and said, "I mean, if only there weren't these annoying things." She originally wanted to say, "If there comes a day when you're tired of these things, you don't have to force yourself. Let's part on good terms." But when she was about to say it, she suddenly felt that Shi Fengju would be angry if he heard it, so she held back her words. "Yes." Shi Fengju sighed and lowered his head to kiss her soft lips. He gritted his teeth and said, "I just want to live happily with you. Why is it so difficult? Wan Nyang, am I really that good? Can't you live without me?" Sangwon's body stiffened. She knew that he was referring to Gu Fengzi. She sighed in her heart. How could a man understand a woman's thoughts so easily? Shi Fengju continued, "I told her before that I don't like her. It's impossible for me to be with her. I can even acknowledge her as my younger sister, prepare a generous dowry, and let her marry off grandly as the Sher family's young missy. In the future, the Sher family will be her backing, and she won't be bullied at all. But why doesn't she listen to me? Maybe she really likes you. Sang-won smiled casually. Sher Fengju's deep eyes stared at her. After a moment, he smiled and said, "You're not telling the truth. Does she really like me that much? I don't feel it." Sang-won sighed softly and said softly, "Perhaps she's unwilling to accept it." Unwilling? Sher Fengju's heart shook violently. He was stunned for a moment. Was he unwilling to accept it? It seemed to be the case. She was too stubborn. Mother's side is fine. Don't worry. As for your second uncle's matter, I'll take care of it properly. Sher Fengju said again. Sang-won nodded. When I heard that he and second aunt were missing, I felt uneasy. Sure enough, something happened today. No matter what, don't keep them here. Let them go back quickly. Second uncle's deficit, how much is it? Sher Fengju raised his eyebrows and smiled. Why? You want to pay for him? Chapter 250. What else can we do? Sang-won smiled and sighed. Don't even think about getting back the money that's already in their hands. It's not like we can rob them by force, right? I'll try my best to think of a way. Sher Fengju smiled and said, Your second uncle really has a good eye. He took all the valuable goods, but I don't know how much he sold them for. The shopkeeper showed me the booklet and estimated that it's worth around 8,000 taels of silver. You don't have to worry about it. Since I've already taken care of it, I might as well take care of it to the end. I'll pay for it. There's no need to distinguish between the two of us. Sang-won was shocked, ashamed, and angry when she heard this. She originally thought that it would at most be around 1,800 taels of silver. She didn't expect it to be close to 10,000 taels of silver. He really wasn't polite. She didn't know what he was relying on. I really don't have that much money on hand. I'll accept this favor from you. Sang-won helplessly smiled and sighed. Sher Fengju was a bit happy when he saw that she wasn't estranged from him. His wife's business was naturally his business. It was only right for him to handle it. Won Young, I have to repay you. Since you've accepted my favor, you have to properly repay me. Sher Fengju said with a burning gaze. The hand around her waist couldn't help but move ambiguously. Sang-won wasn't in the mood to play with him at this time. Her heart couldn't help but tremble slightly when she was teased by him. She tightly held his moving hand and said angrily, I'm not in the mood right now. Stop messing around. Won Young. Sher Fengju smiled and said, Why let irrelevant things spoil your mood? I really missed the last time before I left home. How come I don't see it now? Hearing him mention the day she counterattacked him, Sang-won's face became even redder. She bit her lip and laughed. What nonsense are you talking about? Sher Fengju laughed. How am I talking nonsense? I really want to. Thinking back to that day, I really regret it. I really regret it. Sang-won couldn't listen to him anymore. She leaned on his shoulder and didn't raise her head to laugh. Sher Fengju hugged her and gently patted her back. He said softly in a low and hoarse voice, Won Young, let's have a baby quickly, okay? Sang-won's body stiffened slightly. She nodded gently and said, Okay. Ryo Kuwabara, his wife, and Yen Ji left Qingzhou the next day. The money they had lost was replenished, and this matter was quickly settled without a trace. Sang-won still went to greet Wang Shi every day, and Wang Shi treated her the same way. However, Sang-won could clearly feel that Wang Shi was estranged from her. From time to time, they would bump into Gu Fengzi. They would exchange polite smiles and nods before passing by. In the past, Sang-won was full of confidence that one day, she would be accepted and liked by Wang. But now, she didn't have such a thought. A daughter-in-law was a daughter-in-law. Even if she had thousands of good points, as long as she made the slightest mistake, she would be consigned to eternal damnation. She simply relaxed her heart and was too lazy to think about it. Rather than wasting her energy on useless things, it was more important to quickly conceive a child. As long as she gave birth to a grandson for the Sher family, with her maternal brother as her backing, no one would be able to bully her again. Ryo Kuwabara's matter seemed to have caused a huge storm, but under Sher Fengju's handling, it was quickly buried and silent. Gu Fengzi originally thought that Sher Fengju would angrily rush to Peony Park to reprimand her. She even thought about what Sher Fengju would say and how she should respond. But after waiting for a long time, Sher Fengju still didn't take a single step into Peony Park. Sometimes, she would purposely show up on his path or meet him in front of Wang, but Sher Fengju didn't show the slightest reaction. It was as if that matter had never happened. Or rather, he didn't think that it had anything to do with her. But Gu Fengzi didn't think so. She believed that her shadow was everywhere. It was impossible for Sher Fengju to not notice, but he didn't ask about it. What did he want to do? 3 days passed in apprehension. One morning, Lan Xiang went to the kitchen to get her breakfast, but it was a servant from the kitchen who came back with the breakfast. She said that Sister Lan Xiang had something to do and left, so the kitchen ordered her to bring it over. Gu Fengzi rewarded the servant with a few copper coins and sent her away. Although she was a little unhappy with Lan Xiang's behavior of leaving without a word, she didn't take it to heart. When it was almost noon, Lan Xiang still hadn't returned. Gu Fengzi faintly felt that something was wrong. She ordered the servants in Peony Park to inquire about it. Gu Fengzi would never have dreamed that the servant would bring back news that Lan Xiang had left. Servant Li, who is in charge of training and assigning servants to the inner courtyard, has taken away all the servants in the manor who are over 18 years old and haven't found a husband to marry. There are a few young stewards in the manor who have just reached the age of marriage, so they've all been taken away. Miss Lan Xiang has also been taken away. She said that the vacancy will be properly filled in the next 2 days. Bang! With a crisp sound, Gu Fengzi smashed the teacup in her hand into pieces. She got up and ran towards the main courtyard. Lan Xiang was actually taken away by someone without making a sound. At this moment, Gu Fengzi finally realized how important Lan Xiang was in her heart. She had served her for so many years, but she had disappeared just like that. Who was it that would be so ruthless? Gu Fengzi didn't even think about it and pinned the blame on Sang Wan. She rushed into the main courtyard and knelt beside Wang, crying, "Aunt! Auntie, please help me, please help me." Wang was startled by her actions and hurriedly pulled on her arm. "What's wrong? What the hell happened? Don't panic, tell me slowly." As she spoke, she hurriedly ordered Xiao Chun, Xiao Li, and the others to help her up. Gu Fengzi turned around and refused. She raised her tear-filled face and tightly clutched Wang's clothes as if she was clutching at a life-saving straw. Aunt, Lan Xiang is gone. Lan Xiang was taken away by someone. She's the only servant I like. We've been together for so many years, and I can't bear to part with her. Please, Aunt, help me save her." Lan Xiang. Wang was stunned and hurriedly asked, "Who is so bold? Who dares to forcibly take Lan Xiang away?" Gu Fengzi shook her head and continued to cry. She intermittently recounted what had happened in the morning and what the servants in her courtyard had heard. Wang Shi was so angry that her whole body trembled. She said, "I know that the older maidservants in the manor are taken out to marry other men. But I didn't expect Madame Li to have the guts to forcefully take away your eldest maidservant. How dare she?" Wang was furious and was about to call someone to summon Servant Li when Gu Fengzi tugged at her clothes and said with tears in her eyes, "Aunt, I'm afraid it's useless to ask Servant Li. No matter what, Madame Li is just a servant. How could she have the guts to do that?" Wang raised her eyebrows and became angrier. She slammed her palm on the tea table and stood up angrily. "Let's go to Ning Garden." If Servant Li didn't dare, then there was naturally someone else who dared. Other than Sang Wan, Wang couldn't think of a second person in the manor who would dare to do such a thing. The group of people arrived at Ning Garden with a murderous aura. Sang Wan had just finished dealing with the manor's daily affairs and had just returned. She hadn't even taken 2 sips of the tea in her hand when she saw a servant hurriedly come in and report, "First Madam is here." Sang Wan, Mama Li, Lu Ye, Xing Ji, and the others went out to welcome her. Wang had never come to Ning Garden before. At least, she had never come here after she married into the manor. Usually, she would send a servant to pass on a message. The most important thing was to send Mama Jiang. This was the first time she had come here. Sang Wan suddenly had a bad premonition. When she saw Gu Fengzi beside Wang, whose eyes were red and tear-stained, her heart skipped a beat. "Mother, if there's anything you need, you can just ask someone to send your daughter-in-law over. I didn't expect you to come." Sang Wan smiled and went forward to help Wang. "Umph." Wang brushed away Sang Wan's hand with a cold face and walked straight inside without stopping. She said coldly, "You're the mistress of the household and the head of the household. I can't accept your courtesy." Everyone was shocked. Mama Jiang, Xiao Chun, and the others who had followed her in looked down calmly as if they hadn't seen anything. However, the expressions of all the servants in Ning Garden changed. Sang Wan was even more shocked. For a moment, she was shocked, ashamed, and ashamed. She didn't know what had happened to make Wang so angry. "Young mistress, quickly go in. There must be some misunderstanding. Don't be anxious or angry. If First Madam asks you anything, just explain it properly, okay? Otherwise, it'll be an outsider's fault." Mama Li saw Sang Wan's face turn red and white in a daze. She hurried forward to help her and said in a low voice, "Yes, thank you for your advice. I know." Sang Wan felt warm in her heart and hurried to keep up. Mama Li beckoned Lu Ye over and ordered, "Go personally and find a suitable person to ask first young master to come back." "Yes." Lu Ye hurriedly nodded her head and ran off. When Sang Wan entered the room, Wang was already sitting on the chair. Gu Fengzi and Mama Jiang were standing on her left and right. Xiao Chun and the others were all sitting at the side with their hands down. The large hall was silent. Sang Wan only brought Mama Li and Xing Ji into the room. The rest of the servants were waiting in the corridor in silence. "Mother. I don't know why Mother is here today." Sang Wan went forward and curtsied. "You're asking me? First, ask yourself what good things you've done." Wang sternly said, "Wan Yang, the matter with your second uncle is already in the past. Let's treat it as if nothing happened. Do you agree?" Sang Wan said, "Mother, you're a magnanimous person. Wan Yang is very grateful. Of course, I agree." "Is that so?" Wang sneered. "If that's the case, why did you turn around and wait for an opportunity to retaliate? Feng told me before that she was afraid that you would suspect that she did something because of this matter. She was afraid that she would make you unhappy." I patted my chest and assured her that Wan Yang had always been virtuous, polite, and broad-minded. She wasn't a muddle-headed person, and I told her not to worry. "I didn't expect that you would really do that. These past few days, I saw that you didn't say or do anything. I thought that you had really thrown this matter aside. Who knew that you already had a plan? Lan Xiang has served Feng since she was young. The relationship between the two of them isn't as simple as a master and servant. You forcefully took Lan Xiang away. Isn't this clearly cutting off Feng's arm? She's the only person you like. Why do you have to do this?" Chapter 251. "Mother, what are you talking about? Wan Yang doesn't understand." Sang Wan looked at Wang in confusion. She was really confused by her mother's words. Lan Xiang? Lan Xiang disappeared? Sang Wan sensed something and said in surprise, "How could a living person disappear? Could it be that she went to play in the garden?" "Older sister." Gu Fengzi went forward and pulled on her sleeve, begging, "Without your permission, how could servant Li have the guts to take Lan Xiang away? I beg you, please return Lan Xiang to me. I beg you." Gu Fengzi cried and pushed, causing Sang Wan to feel dizzy. She frowned and said, What exactly happened? First, tell me clearly. Gu Fengzi could only cry and plead for leniency. How could she explain herself clearly? Wang became angrier and said hatefully, Feng Er is already so humble. Wan Yang, no matter how angry you are, you should be appeased. Mama Li couldn't stand it anymore and gave a look to Xing Ji. The two of them went forward and forcefully pulled Gu Fengzi away. Mama Li smiled and said, Young Miss Gu, don't be anxious. There's no use in being anxious. This matter needs to be explained clearly. Mama Li smiled at Wang and said, Young miss, don't talk about young mistress. Even the old slave is confused. What happened to Lan Xiang? I'm afraid you're also not clear about this matter. Don't talk too much and stand to the side. Wang still gave Nanny Li some face. Although her face was still cold when she spoke to her, her tone softened a little. Mama Li knew that she couldn't speak anymore. Otherwise, when her young Mrs. temper flared up, she would lose all her face. Moreover, since she had said so, it was clear that she would not believe anything she said. If she saw that she was helping young mistress, she might even be angrier. Yes, Mississippi, Mama Li nodded and stepped aside. Young mistress, Nanny Jiang saw that Gu Fengzi had been pulled to the side and wasn't crying as loudly as before, so she briefly explained what had happened. Then, she said, Young mistress, quickly send someone to chase after Lady Li and Lan Xiang. After all, Lan Xiang has served Miss Biao for so many years. If you suddenly send her away, no one would be able to accept it. Sang Wan was immediately startled. What Madame Li was doing was the usual practice of the household over the years. After Madame Li reported it to her, she didn't ask any questions and simply nodded to let Madame Li handle it. But she did not expect Lan Xiang to be on the list. If she knew, she naturally wouldn't allow it. On second thought, Madame Li certainly didn't have the guts. Then, who else could it be? Shi Fengju? Sang Wan's mouth suddenly became bitter. If it really was Shi Fengju, then Wang and Gu Fengzi really didn't find the wrong person to cause trouble for her. Wasn't Shi Fengju doing this for her sake? In the end, she was the root cause. If she didn't believe it, she would look at Nanny Jiang. Didn't such a mature and steady person also think that this was her doing? Still waiting for her to call for help? Wang sneered. She's eager to stall for time. I've already sent someone to intercept her. Wan Yang, what else do you have to say? If it weren't for your explicit hint, how could Madame Li have the guts? She dared to intercept them halfway. Sang Wan's lips moved, but she was speechless. She was disappointed to find that she had nothing to say. Mother-in-law was becoming more and more mature. Explicit hint. Those words were used very well, and she had no way to refute them. Moreover, she didn't want to refute them. Even she knew that Madame Li certainly didn't have the guts to do so. There must be someone behind her. Was she supposed to push all the blame onto Shi Fengju? Not to mention whether mother-in-law would believe her or not, her actions would only increase her disgust and anger. As a wife, criticizing her husband was definitely not something mother-in-law could tolerate. Moreover, Shi Fengju did it for her. She wouldn't clear her name and push him away. I have nothing to say. Wang sneered. Wan Yang, you're really getting bolder. Don't think that just because Fengju dotes on you, you can be so petty. Which family's eldest daughter-in-law is as intolerant as you? Sang Wan's hands clenched and her body trembled slightly. Wang Shi's words were like a sharp knife stabbing into her heart, causing her to bleed profusely. Old mistress. A middle-aged woman came in from the outside and quickly paid her respects to Wang Shi. She said guiltily, I don't know which village Madame Li took her people to. This servant didn't have time to stop them in the city. I've already sent people to chase after them. Gu Fengzi, who was originally weeping with her head lowered, suddenly raised her head and looked anxiously at Wang. Aunt. Don't worry, Aunt will definitely bring Lan Xiang back. Wang frowned and waved her hand. Leave. If you can't even handle such a small matter, what's the use of having you here? Quickly keep an eye on her. Once she's brought back, bring her directly to Ning Garden. The woman hurriedly responded and left the room. Wang turned her head and stared at Sang-won. If Lan Xiang is fine, then it's fine. But if not, Wan Nyang, tell me how I should punish you. Wan Nyang will follow mother's teachings. How mother punishes Wan Nyang, Wan Nyang will accept it. Sang-won said softly. Wang coldly snorted. Don't give me that half-dead look. As the mistress of the house, you can't tolerate others. Not to mention that you can't tolerate others, you even use such underhanded means. What kind of ability is that? Our She family will never tolerate a daughter-in-law with such a character. Wan Nyang, you should reflect on yourself. Sang-won's face was as white as wax paper and she did not make a sound. She knew that her mother-in-law was already being polite with her words. If she did not have a brother who came in third, her words would not be so light. At the very least, she would be grounded. Gu Fengzi had the same thoughts as Sang-won. Gu Fengzi did not feel good in her heart. Reflect on herself? That was too easy on her. She had gotten rid of the only confidant by her side without a word. Who knew what kind of person she would get for her? Her aunt was so angry and kept saying that she would seek justice for her, but she only put her down lightly and dismissed her with the word, reflect. How unfair. Aunt, don't blame sister. Second old master-in-law's matter was indeed my fault. I shouldn't have let him enter the She family's business in a moment of soft-heartedness. I have no objections if sister blames me. Who asked me to be a busybody? I should bear the consequences for being a busybody. But Lan Xiang is innocent. As long as Lan Xiang can return to my side, this matter will be over. Gu Fengzi said with tears in her eyes. Sang-won was so angry that she felt dizzy. She stared coldly at Gu Fengzi and said, I know my own uncle's character very well. No matter how muddle-headed I am, I will not blame sister for this matter. Sister, you keep saying that I blame you, but that's strange. How did sister see that from? As for Lan Xiang's matter, when Lady Li returns, she will naturally give sister an explanation. Sister, please calm down. Gu Fengzi was also angry and said with tears in her eyes, If sister doesn't blame me, why did you make a move on Lan Xiang? Sister clearly knows that Lan Xiang is my confidant. Without her, it's like breaking one of my arms. Sang-won said faintly, I've said it before. This matter will be known when Lady Li returns. Sister, instead of arguing with me, why don't you save your energy and wait for Lady Li and Lan Xiang to return before questioning her properly? Gu Fengzi was suddenly at a loss for words and was slightly stunned. She then looked at Wang with grievance. Wang also did not expect that Sang-won would dare to treat Gu Fengzi like this in front of her. She could not help but feel even more annoyed and said coldly, Enough. Stop arguing. When Lady Li and Lan Xiang return, how many things can you not ask? Wang said with a slight sneer. Wan Nyang, you're becoming more and more like the mistress of the household. Sang-won raised her eyes and looked directly at Wang. She said frankly without any fear, Thank you for your praise, mother. Wan Nyang actually feels that she did not do well enough. Let's not talk about whether this matter was Wan Nyang's doing or not. Wan Nyang wanted to punish a servant of a concubine. What kind of big deal is that? Why did mother have to be alarmed? What did you say? Not only did Wang's expression change, but Gu Fengzi also widened her eyes in shock. She only felt that her heart had been ruthlessly stabbed. Concubine, concubine, in front of her, wasn't she just a concubine? Sang-won still said faintly, As the mistress of the household, don't mention punishing a servant of a concubine. Even punishing a concubine is a trivial matter. Mother, isn't that the case? Wang stared at Sang-won as if she did not recognize her. Her lips moved, but she found that she could not say a single word to refute. If she said it out loud, it would make her seem unreasonable. Wasn't it just a concubine? It was normal for the mistress of the household to order around the concubines. As long as she was willing, it was fine even if the concubines had to sleep on the floor in her room and wait on her all night. In some families where the mistress of the household was jealous and mean, the mistress of the household did not need a servant to wait on her. Everything had to be done by the concubines themselves. Even the master of the household could not say anything wrong. Gu family's younger sister, Sangwon's face darkened, and she said in a cold voice, "What have I done to you? Have I mistreated you in any way? You've even been exempted from paying your respects. What else are you dissatisfied with? You often run to mother and cry for mother to make a decision. You've overstepped your boundaries. Tell me, how should I punish you?" When Sangwon said this, there was complete silence. Mama Li and Xing Ji naturally felt that their anger had been vented, but Wang and Gu Fengzi were stunned. Wang suddenly felt that her embarrassment had turned into anger. What was going on? As a mother-in-law, she had angrily run over to her own daughter-in-law and make her lose face for a concubine of her son. This did not seem to match the situation, but Gu Fengzi was even more shocked and angry. She lowered her eyes and gritted her teeth. Her palms were almost crushed. Sangwon, Sangwon. She clearly knew that this was her biggest weakness, but she had to mercilessly poke at it. Her heart was not just a little vicious. Feng is not a normal concubine. She is. Before Wang could finish her sentence, she felt bored and shut her mouth. A concubine was a concubine. Even if she was her niece, so what? When a small sedan entered the Shi household, her identity was first and foremost her son's concubine. The first person she should serve was her son's legal wife. This was a principle that had not changed since ancient times. If this principle was broken, this household would not be far from chaos. This was something that Wang did not want to see and could not allow to happen. Chapter 252. Aunt. Gu Fengzi originally wanted to ask Wang to stand up for her, but she didn't expect her to shut her mouth before she finished speaking. Gu Fengzi was secretly disappointed and immediately stood up with tears in her eyes. "Aunt, don't say any more. Feng doesn't want to make things difficult for you. Feng didn't know the severity of the matter. Elder sister is right. Elder sister, I only did this in a moment of desperation. I definitely wouldn't dare to overstep my boundaries. Elder sister, please investigate clearly. If elder sister isn't willing to forgive me, then you can punish me however you want." Gu Fengzi gritted her teeth and simply went forward to pull Sangwon's dress and knelt down. She wailed, "Elder sister, please forgive me. Elder sister, please don't be angry. In the future, I won't dare to do it again." Feng. This matter originally started when Wang reprimanded Sangwon and Sangwon contradicted her. Now that Gu Fengzi was kneeling and crying, it clearly showed that Wang was losing face. It clearly told her that her daughter-in-law's words were reasonable and it was her, the mother-in-law, who was wrong. Wang thought that Gu Fengzi had no choice but to complain. Of course, she wouldn't blame Gu Fengzi. The anger in her heart was naturally directed at Sangwon. She sternly shouted at Nanny Jiang and the others, "Hurry up and help Miss Gu up. What are you waiting for?" Nanny Jiang and the others hurriedly agreed and went forward to help. Mama Li and Xing Ji also went forward to help. Gu Fengzi had to put on a good show. Since she had already knelt down, wouldn't it be a loss if she didn't put on a good show? Her hands clung tightly to Sangwon's skirt, unwilling to let go. If Sangwon wanted to escape, how could it be so easy? Mama Li's back was facing Wang. She rudely pried Gu Fengzi's fingers away and pulled her up. "Sister, I really know I was wrong. I beg you to forgive me this time." Gu Fengzi hated Mama Li to death in her heart, and tears streamed down her face. "Enough." Wang suddenly stood up and said with a cold face, "Wanyong, good. You're so capable. You've got great means. But there's no need to teach a concubine a lesson in front of me. Feng, don't cry. What's the point of crying to death in front of him?" "Humph, a concubine? I'll make the decision to promote her to a second wife. I'd like to see what other excuses you have." Gu Fengzi was overjoyed. Her delicate shoulders shook slightly as she sobbed softly, making her look even more pitiful. Sangwon's heart felt as if it had been split into two halves. One half was cold, and the other half was furious. Second wife. Mother, you can make the decision. Wan Nyang has nothing to say. Sangwon suddenly felt that it was ridiculous. So all this time, she had been working hard in the wrong direction. She originally thought that as long as she carefully won over her husband, she would be able to gain a firm foothold and avoid the tragedy of her previous life. However, she neglected her mother-in-law. In the end, Gu Fengzi took advantage of this loophole. Humph, it's useless even if you have something to say. It's not up to you to make decisions in this family. Wang said angrily. Mother. Wan Nyang. You're all here. Shi Fengju strode in from outside while the room was in chaos. Do you have ears, or what? You came so quickly. Wang saw that her son always appeared at the wrong time, so she was very unhappy. Gu Fengzi was originally sobbing, but when she saw him, she quickly stopped crying and lowered her eyes to reduce her presence. She was afraid that Shi Fengju would take his anger out on her and blame her for instigating discord. In all honesty, this time, she really only wanted Lan Xiang back. She couldn't imagine what she would do without Lan Xiang. More importantly, Lan Xiang knew so many things about her. Who knew if she would have a change of heart after marrying a man? If a man wanted to please Sangwon, and Lan Xiang helped him, then it would be terrible. She had not even had time to give her a word of advice. Shi Fengju didn't answer. He turned his head and said, "Come in." Yes. Following the soft and timid voice of a young girl, a servant girl wearing a light green vest and a white silk skirt walked in. It was Lan Xiang. Lan Xiang. Gu Fengzi's heart was greatly relieved. She immediately ran towards Lan Xiang and reached out to hold her hand. Lan Xiang, you're finally back. Eldest cousin, thank you. Gu Fengzi's expression was so happy that her heart was about to jump out. Originally, she only had some suspicions, but now she was certain that Lan Xiang was deliberately taken away by Sangwon. Otherwise, why would her eldest cousin bring her back? This was called the evils brought on by oneself. This time, she didn't have to do anything and she made a mistake first. She was so arrogant that even her eldest cousin couldn't stand it anymore. Wang was stunned. Sangwon was stunned. Mother Jiang, Mama Li, and the others were all stunned. They didn't expect things to take a turn for the worse. The most shocked person was Sangwon. She knew that Shi Fengju must have asked someone to take Lan Xiang away. Now, he brought her back. What did he want to do? Before everyone could recover from their shock, something even more shocking happened. They saw Lan Xiang take 2 steps back to avoid Gu Fengzi's hand. She lowered her head and said awkwardly, "Young miss." Her obvious resistance and attitude made Gu Fengzi's expression change. "Lan Xiang, what's wrong with you?" "Move to the side," Shi Fengju said to Lan Xiang. Lan Xiang quickly responded with a yes, and moved to the side. Shi Fengju didn't even look at Gu Fengzi's shocked expression. He stepped forward and smiled at Wang. "Mother, this matter was originally ordered by me. Shouldn't I come?" Everyone was shocked. Gu Fengzi stared at Shi Fengju in disbelief. Her expression was as hurt as it could be. Ever since he came in, he didn't even look at her. She thought that the matter with Ryo Kuwabara had passed since he didn't look for her. Who knew that he still remembered it and never intended to let her go? Take Lan Xiang away from her. That was his most direct reply. Actually, she didn't have to take Lan Xiang. What made her even more disappointed was his attitude. He clearly didn't want to talk to her anymore. "What did you say?" Wang raised her voice in disbelief. "You were the one who ordered Servant Li to take Lan Xiang away." Shi Fengju didn't care and said indifferently, "Yes, Lan Xiang isn't young anymore. It's time for her to get married. As for my cousin, I'll just pick a good one to serve her." Lan Xiang was also willing to do this. Servant Li left in a hurry, so she didn't have time to go back and say goodbye to my cousin. "This isn't a big deal. My cousin will naturally know about it later." "You..." Wang's heart felt stifled. She lost the mood to argue with her son. What was there to argue about? Why should she interfere when her son was dealing with a servant? If the mother and son quarreled because of this, it would become a joke if word got out. However, Wang Shi was unable to vent her anger, which made her very angry. No matter what, Lan Xiang is still someone by Feng Er's side. How can you take her away without saying a word? Wang said angrily. Shi Fengju smiled and said, Mother, Lan Xiang is also a servant of our residence. Can't I deal with her? Besides, she was willing to do this. If you don't believe me, you can ask her. She has served my cousin for so many years. I think my cousin would also want to see her have a good home, right? Gu Fengzi couldn't listen to anything else. There was only one thought in her mind. Cousin really doesn't want to talk to me anymore. He really doesn't want to talk to me anymore. He doesn't even want to question me. He is so cruel. Lan Xiang met Wang's angry gaze and knelt down timidly. She lowered her head and whispered, this servant, that's enough. Wang waved her hand in disgust and interrupted her. She stood up with a sullen face. Her eyes were cold as they swept over Sang Wan. Finally, she said to Shi Fengju, I don't care how you want to deal with this matter. But I'm telling you, I want Feng Er as my daughter-in-law. I've already decided. I'll choose an auspicious day for you to marry her as a co-wife. What, your mother wants an obedient and agreeable daughter-in-law to serve by her side. This request isn't too much, right? Since Lan Xiang was brought here by her son, whether it was against her will or not, she wouldn't dare to go against her son's wishes. Wang understood this even if she didn't care about matters. She didn't want to hear those words. As a mother, she had the right to make requests for her daughter-in-law. Whatever kind of daughter-in-law she wanted, her son had to obediently marry her. Gu Fengzi slightly raised her eyes and looked at Shi Fengju. She didn't have the confidence she had before, but her stubbornness didn't decrease. His attitude didn't seem to be important anymore. What was important was that this was her wish since she was old enough to understand things. After so many years, she had to fulfill it. As for whether he liked her or not, whether he was willing or not, it didn't matter anymore. What she needed more was the identity of the young mistress of the Shi family and the mother of the Shi family's son. That was enough. Sang Wan's face turned pale and she remained silent. Shi Fengju didn't say anything either. He only sighed and said gently, I'll send you back first. Wang saw that her son didn't reject her outright and felt that she had regained some face. She glanced at Sang Wan and let him accompany her out. Gu Fengzi was startled and walked out without looking at Lan Xiang, who was kneeling on the floor. The room suddenly quieted down. A strange silence surrounded everyone, almost suffocating them. Sang Wan stood there in a daze. She glanced at Lan Xiang and ordered, Take her away. All of you can leave too. I'm a little tired and want to rest for a while. Mama Li looked at her worriedly and ordered someone to take Lan Xiang away. She then helped her into the warm room. Ma'am, no matter what, you're the official daughter-in-law of the Shi family. Even if she's promoted to a second wife, she's still inferior to you. Please don't take it to heart. Perhaps, old mistress just said it casually. When her anger subsides and no one mentions it again, this matter will be over. Nanny, Sang Wan smiled gratefully and said, Actually, Mother has always had this idea. How could you not know? It's just that she gave me some face in the past because of my face. Now that she's angry with me, she naturally can't care about it. Since I've already said it, how can I change my mind? Nanny, don't worry. It's nothing. I can take it. Mammy Lee sighed softly and said after a moment, That vixen is good at flattering people. Your filial piety is in your heart. You always make proper arrangements so that Miss can live a comfortable life and don't have to worry about anything. Unlike her, you are filial in your mouth. You shouldn't have talked back to Missy today. Missy's temper is a little reckless. If she wasn't angry, she wouldn't have said that. Chapter 253. Sang Wan smiled bitterly. Actually, I didn't expect things to turn out like this today. It's just that Gu Fengzi kept biting and pestering me endlessly. I was so angry that I lost my head. Mama Li smiled and said, "No matter, there's still young master." "She doesn't like young master, so what if she's a co-wife? Didn't you see that after young master came in, he didn't even look at her? If young master still had some feelings for her, he wouldn't have punished Lan Xiang. It's obvious that she's not satisfied and has long since worn away this little bit of affection." Sang Wan's heart skipped a beat, and she felt slightly uncomfortable. Although Shi Fengju didn't pay attention to Gu Fengzi, he didn't object to his mother-in-law's words. It seemed that he was just like her, unable to do anything about his mother-in-law. That's right, she was his mother after all. How could he resist her to the end? Although this was what she thought, Sang Wan still felt aggrieved. Mama Li saw that her complexion wasn't too good, so she helped her lie down and covered her chest with a thin silk blanket before leaving. Sang Wan was actually secretly hoping that Shi Fengju would come back to see her after sending Wang back. Even if he couldn't change anything, at least he would say a few good words to her. Who knew that after waiting for a while, she still didn't see his shadow. She fell asleep in a daze. When she woke up, the room was slightly dark, and Shi Fengju was still nowhere to be seen. Sang Wan was slightly disappointed. She sat up in a daze for a moment before letting out a long sigh. She tidied up her hair and got off the Kong bed. She secretly mocked herself. What was she angry about? What was she hoping for? Wasn't today's result very clear from the beginning that this was a possibility? She had originally classified this possibility as the worst possibility, and had also thought about how to face it. Since she couldn't avoid it, instead of worrying about this matter, it was better to put it aside and live her life comfortably. This life was different from her previous life. Her life and status were guaranteed, so what else did she have to worry about? Whether she was a co-wife or a concubine, what difference did it make? Although this one was difficult to deal with, most of the servants and stewards in the estate were on his side. What could she do to him? Since he had already shed all pretense of cordiality today, he had nothing to worry about in the future. Since she had achieved her goal, it would be fine if she could live a peaceful life. However, if she continued to scheme against him, he would not be so easy to bully. Sang Wan thought about it for a while and felt carefree. Smiling slightly, she put the matter aside and stopped thinking about it. When Mama Li came in to report that eldest young master still had some unfinished business and did not need to wait for him for dinner tonight, Sang Wan did not seem to mind. She only faintly replied, "Got it." She then asked what dishes the kitchen had prepared. He ordered the servants to leave a few dishes for Shi Fengju and instructed them to serve the meal as usual. Mama Li saw that she looked much better after resting for a while. Thinking that she had figured it out, she was secretly happy for her. Although that was what Sang Wan thought in her heart, she was still a little worried. In today's situation, no matter how busy Shi Fengju was, shouldn't he have come back earlier to say a few words to her? She did not expect that after dinner, there would still be no trace of him. Sang Wan could not help but feel a bit stuffy. Out of sight, out of mind, she took a bath early and went to bed. She did not know when Shi Fengju had come back. She only knew that while she was sleeping, someone held her in his arms and sighed softly. She did not know what he said, but he lowered his head and gently kissed her face. Sang Wan did not open her eyes to pay attention. She subconsciously leaned into his arms and fell asleep. The next day, Wang sent Mama Jiang over to convey Wang's words. Mama Jiang wanted her to prepare the estate. She wanted to hold a big banquet and announce to all her relatives and friends that Gu Fengzi had been promoted to a co-wife. When Mama Jiang said this, the expressions of everyone in Ning Garden changed. No one expected that when the eldest madam was angry, she would do anything. Luya had always been loyal to Sang Wan. Seeing this, she trembled with anger. If it was not for the fact that she could not afford to offend Mama Jiang, she would have already asked her. Unexpectedly, Mama Jiang's next words almost made Luya faint. Mama Jiang glanced at her and said, "The eldest madam also said that Miss Luya has been with the eldest young master for a long time. Taking advantage of the fact that they are married together, she will be concubine Lu." "What?" Luya lost her composure and cried out. Seeing that everyone's gazes were on her, some of them were unjust and some of them were envious, her face flushed red. She waved her hand and said anxiously, Nanny Jiang, can I trouble you to inform old mistress? Luya is unlucky and cannot afford to be concubine Lu. Whoever wants to be concubine Lu can be concubine Lu. In short, I won't be concubine Lu. Mama Jiang was a little embarrassed to say this in front of Sangwon, but she did not dare to not understand what her master told her. She smiled and said, Miss Luya, what are you talking about? This is the eldest madam's favor. Many people can't get this kind of blessing. Seeing that Sangwon did not say anything, Mama Jiang could only say, You are the eldest young mistress's maidservant and have served the eldest young master. You should be happy about this. The eldest young mistress must be happy for you. No. I don't want to. Luya was so anxious that her face flushed red, as if she was about to cry. She shook her head and hands in a panic and refused. Seeing that she did not seem to be faking it, Mama Jiang was stunned. The crowd was also stunned. Only Sangwon felt a little uncomfortable, but she felt a little warm. This matter had happened so long ago. If Mama Jiang had not mentioned it today, Sangwon would have forgotten about it. If Luya had changed her mind and pretended to be embarrassed and, reluctantly, agreed to this matter, Sangwon would not have said anything. She could only take it as suffering a loss in silence. However, Luya did not do that. She was still the innocent little girl who had followed her from the Sang family. She was a little girl who was wholeheartedly loyal to her. The wealth and splendor of the past year had not blinded her eyes or blinded her heart. Luya, what are you doing? Mama Li could not help but frown when she saw this. Luya was her goddaughter, and she was already the young master's woman. Getting the status of a concubine was already the best ending for her. This one-track-minded girl. Although she had a deep relationship with the eldest young mistress, she should not be so emotional at this time. Moreover, if she became a concubine, she would still be the eldest young mistress's right-hand woman. Why should she refuse? If she refused, she was afraid that someone would implicate the eldest young mistress in this matter and cause the eldest young mistress to have a reputation of being unvirtuous. She was not helping the eldest young mistress, but harming her. Mama Li was secretly anxious and couldn't help but look at Sangwon. At this time, as long as Sangwon opened her mouth and said a few words, she believed that Luya would definitely give in. After all, Luya refused because of the master-servant relationship between her and Sangwon. She was also Luya's godmother, so it was inconvenient for her to speak up. The moment she spoke up, she would be siding with her goddaughter. Sangwon was actually in a difficult position. She was very clear about Luya's intentions, but she could not speak up. She could not say no, nor could she say yes. The outcome would depend on Luya's own abilities. Luya was really quick-witted in this situation and said, Nothing happened between the eldest young master and I. I'm willing to be a servant for the rest of my life to serve the eldest young master and eldest young mistress. As for being a concubine, I've never thought about it. Mama, please report to the eldest young mistress that I appreciate the eldest young mistress's kindness, but forgive Luya for not being able to comply. What did you say? Mama Li cried out in shock. Back then, clearly, Mama Jiang was also dumbfounded. She thought to herself, what's going on these 2 days? Why is the residence so unpeaceful? It was clearly such a simple matter of passing on a message. Why did it involve so many accidents? Not to mention the eldest young mistress, even she felt a headache. Miss Luya, this is not a joking matter. I'm not joking, Mama Jiang. Luya hurriedly said, Actually, at that time, I was only serving tea in the study. Later, the eldest young master fell asleep. If he didn't tell me to leave, I didn't dare to leave. So, I fell asleep on the chair. The next morning, the eldest young master woke me up, and then I came back. Everyone was speechless for a long time. Mama Li opened her mouth and said weakly, You silly girl. Then why didn't you say a word after that? Everyone thought that you had become the eldest young master's concubine. Lu Ya's face turned red. She said shyly, "This matter. No one asked me in person. How could I talk about it?" Mama Li was stunned again. Everyone thought that it was a matter of course. Of course, no one would ask her, and she really couldn't talk about it for no reason. But, even so, Mama Li still felt that this matter was too absurd. Sangwon laughed inwardly. It was rare for this girl to be so quick-witted. She had fooled the two astute mamas. "Luya," Sangwon finally spoke, "this matter is the eldest young mistress's grace. I won't force you. Think about it carefully. No matter what, I will treat you the same in the future." Luya was her dowry maid. No matter what, she had to open her mouth. "Eldest young mistress." Luya heard this and knelt down in front of her. She raised her head and looked at her with a determined and calm expression. "This servant doesn't dare to claim connections. This servant is willing to serve eldest young mistress and eldest young master for the rest of my life. Forgive this servant for not accepting eldest young mistress's kindness. Eldest young mistress, please grant this servant's wish." Lu Ya and Sangwon had always had a good relationship. Everyone was used to seeing her smile. Today, when she suddenly became serious, they were a little surprised. Her expression and tone showed that these words were from her heart. Otherwise, with her relationship with Sangwon, even if she accepted it, Sangwon would not be unable to tolerate her. So what if she became a concubine? In the end, she was still a maid. The only thing she could rely on was Sangwon. Unless her brain was flooded with water, she would not betray Sangwon in the future. Mama Zhong's expression suddenly became a little ugly. She felt that eldest young mistress's temper was getting worse. She had just quarreled with eldest young mistress. Now, eldest young mistress wanted to promote Luya. Although it was partly because she was angry with her, there was no harm in her agreeing to this matter. When eldest young mistress saw that she obeyed her, she might feel a little guilty and write off the previous matter. She was good. Not only did she not help to persuade Luya, she even faintly suspected that she was supporting her. Chapter 254. However, since Sangwon had already said so, as a servant, it wasn't appropriate for Zhong Mama to intervene in the affairs of the eldest young master's courtyard. Thus, she looked at Sangwon with a calm expression. "Nanny Zhong," Sangwon looked at her, "since this lass is so insistent, may Nanny Zhong report back to old mistress and thank her for her kindness?" This meant that she was rejecting her. Zhong Mama glanced at Sangwon and nodded. "Since young mistress has said so, old slave will report back to first madam later." "Then about Miss Biao," Sangwon smiled faintly. "Mother didn't see me when I went to pay my respects today. I actually had something to report to Mother. I haven't been feeling well these past few days, so I want to go to the farmstead to rest for a few days. I'm afraid I won't be able to share Mother's burden. However, since Mother has said so, I don't dare to refuse. I'll leave Mama Li and Xing Ji to help in the Fu. The stewards of the Fu are all middle-aged and experienced. With them around, there won't be any mistakes. As for me, I'm still young and have never handled such an important matter. If I stay, I'm afraid I'll only add to the mess." Zhong Mama was startled and subconsciously looked at Mama Li, meaning, what's going on? Nanny Li was also taken aback. Sangwon had never mentioned anything about going to the country house to recuperate, and this was the first time she heard it from her. However, she was one of Sangwon's people. If she didn't know about this matter, then it was obvious that Sangwon had blurted it out at the last minute. Then, it was clear that she was deliberately opposing First Madam. Mama Li was well aware of the relationship between the two, so how could she let Zhong Mama see any clues? Her expression was calm and unperturbed, as if she had already heard about it from Sangwon. Zhong Mama sighed inwardly and nodded with a smile. "Since that's the case, old slave will report back to First Madam." "Oh yes, may I know when young mistress is preparing to set off?" "It's today," Sangwon said with a smile. "I'll have to trouble Mama to inform Mother that if Mother is free, I'll go and bid farewell. Otherwise, I won't disturb you." Old slave will report to First Madam right away. Nanny Jiang hurriedly responded. It was better to leave this place as soon as possible. Sangwon nodded and watched her leave. Mama Li dismissed the maidservants, leaving only Lu Ye, Xing Ji, and Hong Yi by her side. "Ma-am, are you really going to stay at the farmstead?" Sangwon smiled and said, "That's right, Mama. I'll have to trouble you to take care of the residents." Sangwon admitted that she could not personally handle this matter for Gu Fengzi. Since he couldn't change it, he might as well avoid it. Out of sight, out of mind. Mama Li's lips moved, but in the end, she didn't say any words of persuasion. She sighed softly. Since that's the case, Ma-am should stay there for a few days. "May I know which farmstead you're going to? After staying there for a few days, old slave will send someone to bring you back. The residents can't be without you." Mama Li knew that she was annoyed by this matter and planned to bring her back once this matter was over. Otherwise, when Gu Fengzi coaxed First Madam into handing everything to her, it would be too late for Sangwon to return. This matter wasn't something to throw a tantrum about. She thought that after a few days, when Ma-am's anger subsided, she would be able to think clearly. Sangwon only smiled and didn't say anything. Not long after, Xiu-chun arrived and said that First Madam invited Ma-am over. Sangwon instructed Lu Ye and the others to pack a simple luggage and casually brought 2 maidservants along. As she expected, Wang's expression was very unsightly, and it became even more unsightly when she came in. Daughter-in-law pays respects to mother. Sangwon went forward and curtsied, then stood up gently. Her pink neck was slightly lowered, her eyes were gentle, and her expression was tranquil. She was gentle and elegant as usual, but there was still something different. Wang didn't speak, so Sangwon didn't speak either. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law were silent. "You're going to stay at the farmstead?" After a while, Wang asked indifferently without any emotion. "Yes, I want to go today and specially came to bid farewell to mother." Sangwon nodded. "Humph," Wang sneered. "Why do you want to go to the farmstead? Are you uncomfortable living in this residence? Are you feeling uncomfortable physically or mentally?" If it was in the past, Sangwon's face would have turned snow-white when she heard Wang's harsh words. But now, she didn't have that caution. What was the use of being careful? She still couldn't change anything. Sangwon could only pretend that she didn't understand the meaning behind Wang's words and honestly replied, "My body is a little uncomfortable. So, I ask mother to allow daughter-in-law to go to the farmstead to rest and recuperate." Wang bumped into a neither soft nor hard rebuff and almost fainted. She was so angry that her chest felt stifled. "Go," she said with some anger. "Being uncomfortable is not a small matter. You should take good care of yourself. Don't worry and just stay there. After a while, I will send someone to pick you up." What she meant was, if I don't send someone to pick you up, you don't need to come back. Sangwon didn't take these words seriously and obediently replied, "Yes." If possible, she didn't want to come back. But if she wanted to come back, no one could stop her. Wang saw that her expression was indifferent and didn't have the slightest intention of repentance. She waved her hand impatiently and said, "All right, you can leave." Sangwon bent her knees and left. Old mistress, Nanny Jiang saw Sangwon leave and went forward to persuade her, "This isn't good, right? If young master finds out, what can he do?" Wang said angrily, "You've seen it for yourself. It was Wan Yang who wanted to go. I wasn't the one who forced her to leave. If Fengju, that brat, blames me for this, then he isn't my son." Nanny Jiang didn't dare to make a sound. Wang thought about it and became even more annoyed. Wan Yang's temper is getting worse. Does she really think that I can't control her? Ever since she married into the family, Fengju has only doted on her for so long, but I haven't seen anything happen to her belly. Now that Fengju has a concubine, she's throwing a tantrum. This is the Sang family's upbringing. Old mistress. Old slave can see that young mistress isn't such a person. Please calm down. When Nanny Jiang saw that Wang Shi wanted to settle the score again, she hurriedly smiled and tried to persuade her. Young mistress is truly filial to you. Even this old servant can see that. How can old mistress not know? Actually, there's something that old slave doesn't dare to say. Wang looked at her and said, if you don't dare to say it, then don't say it. You must be trying to plead for her. Old mistress is wise. Hearing Wang say that, Nanny Jiang laughed and said, Miss Gu has been close to you since young, but she married into the family as a concubine. You've been protecting Miss Gu all the time. It would be strange if young mistress didn't have any thoughts about it. Although young mistress's words yesterday were a little harsh, they weren't wrong. She's the legal wife. Even if she really punished a concubine's maidservant, it wouldn't be a big deal. If old mistress were to bring Miss Gu to question her, where would young mistress put her face? Moreover, young mistress wasn't the one who did it. Wang couldn't help but waver when she heard that. But how could she admit it? If she admitted it, wouldn't it mean that she was in the wrong? Sangwan was so stubborn. At this time, even if it was to fight for her dignity, she would never admit that she was in the wrong. That's enough. Why are you saying that too? Wang said angrily. It's not like Wan Yang doesn't know about Feng Er's relationship with our Shi family. How can Feng Er be treated as an ordinary concubine? How can I bear to do that? Since Wan Yang is my daughter-in-law, shouldn't she consider my feelings as a mother-in-law? She's clearly making things difficult for me on purpose. Wang was immediately convinced by her own reasoning and added in a more serious tone, that must be it. Nanny Jiang was completely speechless. The matter between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law was a difficult matter to deal with. Nanny Jiang felt that she shouldn't have said too much. But since she had already spoken, she couldn't help but say again, old slave knows that you dote on Miss Gu, but this way, there will be a day when Miss Gu and young mistress will be at odds with each other. How long can you protect Miss Gu? Young master's heart is now all on young mistress. Wang sighed softly and said, how can I not know that? But Feng Er is so pitiful and is my sister's only child. How can I watch her suffer? That's why I made the decision to promote her to a second wife. When she gives birth to a son for Fengju, she will have someone to rely on for the rest of her life. I will teach her well and mediate between her and Wan Yang. Nanny Jiang wanted to ask if it would be too late by then. But seeing how confident old mistress was, she held back her words silently. Sangwan simply packed her things and called for a carriage. She brought along Lu Ye, a young maidservant, and 2 women who did rough chores, and left the residence. Young mistress, enjoy yourself. After a while, old slave will send someone to bring you back. Mama Li smiled warmly as she sent her to the carriage. She then reminded Lu Ye, serve young mistress well and don't be lazy. Lu Ye quickly agreed. Sangwan also smiled and said, I'll leave the residence to Nanny. Nanny can focus on handling the affairs of the residence. When it's time for me to come back, I'll naturally come back. Mama Li nodded and smiled. She sighed in her heart as she watched the carriage go further and further away. When she turned around, she let out a long sigh. Shi Fengju came back in the evening and didn't see Sangwan. He was surprised and asked. Mama Li was stunned and quickly said, young mistress went to Donglu Manor to recuperate. Young mistress said that she told eldest young master yesterday. Does eldest young master not know? She went to the manor? Shi Fengju was slightly startled. He didn't answer Mama Li's question and quickly asked, who did she bring with her? Did she bring everything? Mama Li said, Lu Ye, 2 mature and capable young daughters-in-law, and a young maidservant went with her. Old slave and Xing Ji didn't have enough time to pack their things. Tomorrow, old slave will have someone send it over. Shi Fengju smiled slightly and shook his head. Then he nodded, have someone send it over tomorrow. Prepare more food and necessities. Don't let her feel wronged. She's unhappy, so it's good for her to go and relieve her boredom. Nanny Li was confused by Shi Fengju's words. From what Shi Fengju had said, did young master agree? But why was he so surprised earlier? Did eldest young master know about this beforehand or not? Eldest young master, don't worry. Old slave understands. Naturally, he won't let young mistress feel wronged. Mama Lee hurriedly nodded in agreement. She thought for a moment and probed. Today, eldest madam ordered that the residence will promote Miss Gu to a co-wife. She needs to arrange it well. Before young mistress passed away, she ordered old slave to take charge of this matter. Eldest young master, what do you think? Chapter 255. Shi Fengju's eyes darkened and he said indifferently, "Don't worry about it for the time being. I'll talk to my mother." Mama Lee was secretly happy when she heard that and quickly agreed. She then asked a servant to fetch water for Shi Fengju to wash his face, hands, and clothes. She also asked someone to go to the small kitchen to see how the food was being prepared. Without Sangwon around, Ning Garden became much quieter. Mama Lee and Xing Ji were not talkative people, but when Luya was around, they loved to chat and laugh. Shi Fengju had nothing to say to Mama Lee after he finished talking about his business, and he had no intention of interacting with the servants. In the past, when Sangwon was around, the two of them would chat and laugh. But today, Shi and Luya were not around, so other than quietly doing their work, no one dared to make a sound. The room was filled with tension for no reason. Shi Fengju also felt very uncomfortable. When it was time to eat, he dismissed the servants. Although there was a large table full of dishes, he was the only one who ate a bowl and chopsticks. Even if it was a delicacy, he could not taste anything. He ate carelessly and went to the study room. At night, he was too lazy to come back. He sent someone to inform Mama Lee before he went to rest in Ning Garden. After Sangwon left, Wang kept an eye on Ning Garden. When she found out that Shi Fengju had stayed in the study room that night, she was unhappy. His wife was not going back, so he was not going back either? When they went to pay their respects the next day, Wang did not even say anything. She directly said to Shi Fengju, "Fengju, you're not blaming mother, are you?" Wan Nyang said that she wanted to go to the country house to recuperate. "It wasn't me who chased her away." At that time, Nanny Jiang was also there. If you don't believe me, you can ask Nanny Jiang. Nanny Jiang did not know whether to laugh or cry when she saw old mistress looking at her with the intention of letting her testify. Old mistress was becoming more and more like a child. She was the eldest young master's mother. How could the eldest young master doubt her words so easily? What's more, I'm her confidant. If eldest young master suspects her, why would he believe me? Moreover, how could a master need a servant to testify for his words? That's right, eldest young master. It was indeed eldest young mistress who wanted to go. It had nothing to do with eldest madam. Nanny Jiang could only say this since she was called out. Shi Fengju didn't know whether to laugh or cry, just like Nanny Jiang. It wasn't that he didn't have any resentment towards his mother, but after hearing her words, he didn't know whether to keep his resentment or disperse it. Shi Fengju felt that he was really unlucky. In the past, he had resisted this marriage. It was his mother who had used his late grandfather and father to insist on it. Now that he had seen Gu Fengzi's true colors and had fallen in love with his wife, he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. However, his mother was always inexplicably interfering. If his mother deliberately made trouble for his wife without reason, he would naturally protect his wife and deal with his mother. However, the problem was that his mother didn't actually hate his wife, but she always made things difficult for him for various reasons. In this, Gu Fengzi played a significant role. How could Shi Fengju have the heart to blame his mother? "Mother," Shi Fengju helplessly smiled and said, "how could I be so muddle-headed as to blame you? Wan Nyang went to Donglu Manor to stay with me after discussing it with me. Naturally, it was her own idea." When Wang heard her son say this, her heart was slightly relieved. She nodded with satisfaction and said with a smile, "I'm relieved that you think this way. That study is cold and cheerless. There isn't even anyone who cares about you. Don't go there tonight. If you don't want to go back to Ning Garden, then go to Peony Park." Mother. Shi Fengju's expression slightly darkened. What's wrong with that? Wang said with conviction. Feng was originally your concubine. Your wife isn't here, so it's only right for her to serve you. Besides, she'll soon be promoted to a second wife. This is your mother's decision. Don't tell me you don't want to. After Wang finished speaking, she stared at her son without blinking. She didn't miss any of the subtle expressions on his face, as if she wanted to see through his thoughts. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that it was impossible. He, Shi Fengju, would never keep a scheming woman by his side. She even used his mother repeatedly. He sent Lan Xiang away to give her a warning. Unexpectedly, she didn't care at all. Instead, she made his mother say such words. Since you don't object, then this matter is settled. I'll ask someone to look at the date and pick an auspicious day to do it. Seeing that her son didn't speak, Wang made the final decision. Not for now, Shi Fengju said with a smile. In 2 days, I'll be going to Hangzhou to participate in this year's Jiangnan Chamber of Commerce. Let's talk about it later. The Jiangnan Chamber of Commerce was held once every 2 years. Almost all the big merchants from all over the country gathered in Hangzhou to display and sell their unique goods. There would also be many new and novel goods at the Chamber of Commerce. It was one of the most important business gatherings in the country. At the Chamber of Commerce, not only could one expand one's network, it was also very beneficial for one to grasp the trends of various industries at present and for a long time in the future. For a long time, the head of the Shi family would attend and at the same time, bring back many business contracts. This even affected the direction of the Shi family's business in the next 1 or 2 years. Of course, Wang Shi had heard of it. Fine, then we'll talk about it when you come back. Seeing that her son didn't immediately refuse, Wang felt much better. She didn't want to argue with him at this time. Mother, don't spread this matter out first. We'll talk about it when I come back. Mother, can you promise me? Shi Fengju asked again. Although Wang was a little unhappy, she reluctantly nodded. Yes, you must listen to Mother when you come back. When have I not listened to Mother? Shi Fengju smiled. Wang Shi sneered. Don't try to play dumb with your mother. If you're really filial, then you'll listen to Mother on this matter. AI, you have to be more careful on the way. I think it's better to take the carriage on the official road. Let the shopkeeper arrange it first. It doesn't matter if you arrive a little later. Thinking about what happened to him on the canal last time, Wang felt a burst of fear and trepidation. Don't worry, Mother. I'll listen to you. This time, I won't board the boat. I'll take the carriage. Shi Fengju smiled. That's more like it. Wang nodded in satisfaction. Not long after Shi Fengju left, Gu Fengzi came to pay her respects with a yellow face and a dispirited look. The forced smile on her face looked as if it would fall at the slightest touch, but she still insisted on it. Seeing this, Wang's heart ached for her. Seeing an unfamiliar servant behind her, Wang sighed in her heart. She waved her hand and smiled. Quickly sit down. Fengju has already agreed to make you his second wife. You should be happy to hear this news, right? As expected, Gu Fengzi's body shook and she raised her head in disbelief. Big cousin agreed to make her his second wife? Did her aunt hear wrongly, or did she hear wrongly? Silly girl. Why would your aunt lie to you? Wang laughed. In 2 days, he'll be going to Hangzhou to participate in the Jiangnan Chamber of Commerce. When he comes back, he'll be able to settle this matter. Gu Fengzi's joy disappeared again. When the Jiangnan Chamber of Commerce returns, it would be at least a month later. At that time, who knew what kind of changes would occur? Big cousin was clearly delaying, and only her aunt would believe him so easily. Thank you, Aunt Wang, for everything you've done for Feng. Gu Fengzi lowered her eyes and said softly with a faint smile on her face. Of course, she could not show her disappointment and dissatisfaction in front of Wang. There's no need to thank me, Wang Shi sighed. In Aunt's heart, you and Yumei are both Aunt's most beloved children. Sigh, when Aunt thinks about the man Yumei married, Aunt feels really sad. If you don't live well, How can I live with myself? Unfortunately, the daughter of a concubine whom she had never taken seriously had a good marriage. Gu Fengzi's heart was moved by her words and she felt a little disappointed. This is great, it's finally complete. Wang said with a satisfied smile, in the future, live well with Fengju. Aunt knows that you're a good child, and you definitely won't disappoint me. In the future, your cousin Yu Mei will still need you to take care of her. Gu Fengzi's heart was suddenly enlightened. So there was a reason why her aunt helped her so wholeheartedly. This was great, her aunt would definitely help her to the end. After all, everyone in the household knew that her cousin did not get along well with Sangwan. Cousin Yu Mei is the same as my biological sister. If there's anything I don't understand, I still need her to teach me. She should be the one taking care of me instead of me taking care of her. Aunt Wang, if you say that, Feng will feel very apologetic. When Wang heard her say that, it was obvious that she placed Shi Yu Mei in a very high position. Her heart was filled with joy and she nodded with a smile. You're right, the two of you are like biological sisters and must support each other in the future. Seeing that the two of you are doing well, Aunt Wang is relieved. Gu Fengzi quickly made a solemn vow to express her determination. After thinking for a while, she suddenly said, I wonder when big cousin will leave for Hangzhou? Wang smiled and said, he said it would be within the next 2 days. I'm afraid it will be soon. Gu Fengzi nodded and smiled. I remember that the Jiangnan Chamber of Commerce starts on the 22nd of June every year. I think he should be leaving in a few days. Wang smiled and said, you have a good memory, it seems so. Oh, I remember now, you seem to have gone with Fengju once before. Aunt Wang, Gu Fengzi smiled and took advantage of the situation to say, it'll be more convenient for cousin to have someone to take care of him along the way. Why don't I accompany cousin on this trip? Wang was elated and nodded with a smile. You're right. With you by his side, I can be more at ease at home. Moreover, the two of them can cultivate their relationship on the road. When they return from Hangzhou, wouldn't it be perfect for them to hold the ceremony to promote her as his wife? Gu Fengzi had expected Wang to agree. When she heard that, she was overjoyed and quickly said, Aunt Wang, don't worry, I'll definitely take good care of big cousin. It's just that, big cousin he probably doesn't want to see me. Although he didn't blame me for what happened to second old Master Sang, I know that he's still suspicious of me. Otherwise, he wouldn't have punished Lan Xiang. Although I'm sad about Lan Xiang, as long as big cousin's anger is appeased, I feel that it's worth it. I just don't know if he still blames me. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.